Chapter 1012 Dark Shadow Clan. Chapter 1012 Dark Shadow Clan _. On their way, they saw more fragments of battleships and war chariots, and a lot more corpses of warriors from different clans. Shadow, ghostly prison had battles year-round. It didn't have a peaceful day. This place was the most chaotic area of Agate Star area. Its dwellers got used to wars and bloody battles. Many warriors had experienced hundreds of battles. They all had various fighting experiences. People living in this place were naturally cruel. People who could adapt well were able to survive. There was no principle here aside from power. The realm and competence were the rulers that measured warriors. Senior, Shadow Ghostly Prison is really vast. Without a direction, it's hard to find the target. Ka-Tua felt a little bored standing on the asteroid, looking at the floating fragments of battleships nearby. He asked reluctantly, "When will we reach the other end of this place?" They had been traveling for half a month in Shadow Ghostly Prison, always heading forward. They had seen a lot of terrible aftermaths of battles, but they hadn't found any living creature. This dark and desolate sea of stars didn't seem to have anything alive. Gradually, people had become impatient. This dispirited and helpless feeling of being unable to find their target slowly filled their souls. "No hurry. We have a clear direction. It's just that you don't know it." "Sure," Yen scolded him, standing on the bluish asteroid and looking at the far distance ahead of them. A scarlet drop of blood that looked like a gemstone cracked open. Strange energy, fluctuations emerged from it. It was the light that the souls couldn't see that extended towards the corners of this deep area. In just a blink, it could travel billions of miles. Squinting, Shi Yan's eyes sparkled with blood light. He had a connection with that drop of blood. The magical energy fluctuated and rippled from him. "We will continue moving forward," he turned to look at Fei Lon. Fei Lon nodded quietly. She didn't say anything, unceasingly pouring more energy into that blue-gray meteorite that they were riding. The rock then flew forward even faster. Zhuo Shi and Xianming sat neatly in a corner of the steroid, their breathing steady and deep and eyes closed. They were still cultivating and studying Power's Upanishad. They were using divine crystals to accumulate energy with the hope of advancing further. While their meteorite was dashing, Shi Yan observed Zhuo Shi. He was really amazed. He could see that Zhuo Shi's energy was increasing every day. Although her energy accumulation wasn't as fast as Shi Yan's when he used Devouring Power Upanishad, Zhuo Shi's speed of taking in divine crystals was something that ordinary people couldn't compare. Zhuo Shi's blood contained the true blood of Holy Beast Black Tortoise. The Black Tortoise was a creature born in the immemorial epoch of Grace Mainland. It had jumped into outer space very early. From some aspect, immemorial creatures were more favored by nature than the God Clan and Demon Clan. Their existences were created by the mysteries of earth and heaven. It seemed like they could understand the nature of their powers right when they started to cultivate it. Each of those creatures had powers that could shatter the world. The Holy Beast Black Tortoise was the Holy Spirit of water. Legends said that from the moment it was born, it had gained the subtle power of water. Its bloodline also had the essence of water power, which could be passed on to each generation. However, sometimes this power was weak and sometimes it was very powerful. Xianming was from the same race as Black Tortoise, but due to the fact that the inheritance had been passed through many different generations, his bloodline wasn't pure. However, it was unknown why Zhuo Shi had an extremely pure bloodline. Xianming felt like he had picked up the top treasure when he found Zhuo Shi. He insisted that Zhuo Shi's blood was the closest to his holy ancestor Black Tortoise. She was the most eligible descendant to inherit the extreme essence of water from Black Tortoise. Frowning and sensing, Shi Yan's countenance was strange. He nodded discreetly. He didn't doubt what Xianming had told him about Zhuo Shi's ability anymore. Zwashur was born to cultivate the essence Water Power Upanishad. Her blood contained the mysterious power Upanishad that made her cultivation have no bottleneck. Her realm was increasing every day, although it was just by a little at a time. This kind of rapid advancement made someone with a speedy progress like Shiryen admire and appraise. If there were geniuses in this world, Zwashur was one of them. Compared to her talent, Shiryen wasn't good enough. Knowing someone was watching her, Zwashur opened her eyes. When she found that it was Shiryen, she smiled sweetly. "Why are you looking at me?" "You are at third sky of King God Realm. I want to know when you can enter original God Realm." When Zwashur thought and then answered him, "It should be short. I think around half a year later, I can break through to original God Realm." Fei Lon, Leona, and Ka Tua did notice them. However, they became baffled upon hearing Zwashur. They looked at Zwashur as if they were watching a monster with astounded faces. They knew that Zwashur had just reached second sky of King God Realm when they were on Fu Wei's battleship. "How long has it been?" And she said that she could reach original God Realm within half a year. What kind of cultivating speed was that? Abnormal. Totally abnormal. Fei Lan's team acclaimed in their heads. Quite the contrary, Xianming didn't feel strange. He'd accompanied Zwashur for so many years that he had become numb to her progress a long time ago. He wasn't surprised at all. "Yeah, it's really fast this time. Previously, I couldn't be that fast. When I broke through to another realm, it used to take several years," Zwashur explained humbly. "It's because of Fu Wei's pellet. She gave me a lot of pellets to cultivate the soul and energy. They are all level 5 or 6 divine grade pellets. Those pellets have helped me accumulate energy really fast. And at the same time, I don't need to worry about the progress of my realm. That's how I naturally break through faster." "So when you didn't use pellets, it took several years to break through a realm?" Ka Tua was baffled. He scratched his head agitatedly. He thought that he was about to collapse. "Yeah, I didn't have pellets, so I just used divine crystals to accumulate energy. Of course, it was really slow," Zwashur answered earnestly. "Ah." Ka Tua dropped his jaw, looking at Zwashur and then Shiryen. He couldn't speak for a long time. Fei Lon and Leona were also dumbstruck. It's the ancient continent, though. It has mysteries that we would never be able to imagine. It could nurture such talents. Fei Lon sighed dejectedly, having a feeling of being defeated. Previously, they couldn't understand Yan's miracle in his cultivation. However, they finally understood why Yan didn't have any blockage in accumulating energy since they accompanied him for a long time. They now knew why Yan could cultivate that quickly. But Zwashur, she was just an ordinary little girl. Without that terrifying devouring power Upanishad, how could she be so unusually talented? The three of them looked at each other, shaking their heads and sighing inwardly. They thought that they would never be able to catch up with these two little monsters. "Fu Wei Jie was really nice." Zwashur cocked her head, blinking innocently. "When we left the battleship, I saw that she feels so lost. She didn't want it. I think she didn't want us to leave." Shiryen frowned and didn't say anything. They had traveled a long way afterward. Today, they finally saw some war chariots flying. Those were the butterfly-shaped war chariots, which were flat like shells. Each war chariot had some holes that allowed people to stay. Shiryan's team could vaguely see many people inside. There were around 10 butterfly-shaped war chariots, made of a strange wooden material. They looked light but durable, so they flew really fast. The edges of those war chariots emitted strange, light beams of energy. Those butterfly war chariots were heading to a desolate star, which looked like a ruin with many bottomless deep holes running directly into the core of the star. Those in-depth caves released cold air currents. Apparently, it was an abandoned mineral star. Perhaps it was exploited until it was emptied out. 10 butterfly war chariots hissed, descended, and then flew into the deep holes. They released their soul consciousness, extending deep further. Their soul consciousnesses are extraordinary. It's hard to lock them. Fei Lan stood up quietly. Immediately, the asteroid they were riding halted 10,000 meters away from that mineral star. She frowned and said to Shi Yan, "Seems like they're looking for something." They all sent their soul consciousnesses deep inside that mineral star. Shi Yan's visage wasn't pleasant. His eyes became darker as he said, "They are Dark Shadow Clan warriors." Hearing him, Fei Lan and Leona put on cold countenances. Fei Lan took a deep breath, her murderous aura emitting thickly. Are they really members of the Dark Shadow Clan? Butterfly-shaped war chariots. Unidentified soul consciousness. They are the features of the Dark Shadow Clan. Shi Yan nodded. I got this information from Fu Wei when I chatted with her. I think we aren't wrong. Fei Lan and Leona looked so cold. They had ferocious and malignant looks when they observed that mineral star. Let's go there and check it out, said Shi Yan indifferently. Fei Lan immediately controlled the meteorite, heading towards the abandoned, desolate mineral star. This mineral star had countless holes. They were like the dark abyss leading to the subterranean world. Cold qi fumed from each hole as if the materials in this mineral stars belonged to the ice class. When they landed on the mineral star, all the butterfly war chariots of Dark Ghost Clan had all disappeared into the holes. Shi Yan quietly sensed for a while. He found that those wisps of roving soul consciousness still seeped deep into the place as if they were trying to find something. We're going down there, too. Shi Yan jumped off the asteroid and then plunged into a hole. In their group, Fei Lan had second sky of Ethereal God Realm, but her real fighting competence could compare to peak of Ethereal God Realm. Leona and Kata were also the kind of warriors that could leap their realms and challenge other higher realm warriors. Shi Yan's competence was somehow immeasurable, anyway. Unless they encountered incipient God realm existences down there, they wouldn't have to bear much damage. If they were unlucky and faced many peak of Ethereal God realm experts, Shi Yan had the confidence to move his team to the nearest space, nod within a blink of an eye. As he was confident, he wasn't fearful. He led his team into the ground. They had pierced through dozens of thousands of meters before the extremely cold, subterranean world appeared in their vision. This mineral star had many crystal glaciers. It looked like a dreamy, icy glass world. The glaciers and icicles stood and supported this world, giving it a spacious but empty look. The hissing noise came from the butterfly war chariots, which arose from the continuous ice mountains. Roving wisps of soul consciousness raked through the place as if they were trying to find anything alive. After Shi Yan's team got into the icy world underground, their life energies fluctuated clearly. They immediately became the target of the Dark Shadow Clansmen. Shortly after, the butterfly war chariots began to fly towards them, shortening the distance between them. Chapter 1013 Proactively Kill. Chapter 1013 Proactively Kill. The three butterfly war chariots approached. They were discernible between the gaps of the icicles. They moved like crying shuttles. One of them dashed over. Instantly, it hovered above an icicle in front of Shi Yan's team. The other two circled, observing like guards that prevented Shi Yan's team from escaping. A face emerged from one of the holes on the butterfly war chariot in front of them. That face looked similar to most of the other creatures from many races. It had eyes, a nose, and a mouth. However, the head of that face was totally different. It looked like an octopus with many tentacles. That creature didn't have hair. Those tentacles, which were more than a meter long, were his hair. His tentacles were brown-gray like his skin color. Each of his tentacles was a little bit bigger than a human thumb. They draped over his shoulder and chest and reached his waist. His tentacles could fly even when there was no wind. This dark shadow warrior wore a set of gray armor that hid behind his tentacles. However, half of his body that protruded from the war chariot looked gentle and slender like a willow catkin. It gave people a feeling that they were floating, just like his wandering soul consciousness. At first look, Shi Yen could confirm that he was from the Dark Shadow clan. Tentacle-headed, a roving soul consciousness, and a butterfly-shaped chariot were their unique features. He was 100% sure about those creatures' origin when he saw their features. The other half of that Dark Shadow man was still inside the war chariot. His brown-gray eyes moved fast, while wisps of his soul consciousness were moving around Shi Yan's team. He frowned as if he had confirmed that they weren't his targets. The man didn't say anything and retreated into his butterfly war chariot. The butterfly war chariot flew away swiftly. It moved far away from this area, so quickly that they couldn't see it anymore. They're looking for something. Shi Yen was surprised. It should be someone. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come so quickly when they sensed our life signals. Fei Lan nodded and agreed with him. That man doesn't have a high realm, Leona said with her hoarse voice. Second sky of ethereal god realm, Shi Yen concluded easily. The soul consciousness of the Dark Shadow clan was super sensitive. I heard it's because of the tentacles on their heads. Those disgusting things give them the ability to use soul consciousness to invade the sea of consciousness. They're good at soul fighting indeed. The Dark Shadow clan has a floating god body. They are fast, but they aren't strong enough. Usually they won't engage in close combat. It's their weakness. From the moment he had decided to go to Shadow, ghostly prison, he had learned about everything related to this mysterious clan. From Wulan, Fu Wei, and Ghost Hunter, Shi Yen had known about the Dark Shadow clan before he had seen them. He knew their advantages and disadvantages. What should we do? Ka Tua grinned fiendishly. Are we capable of defeating them? Don't rush. Just watch for a while to assess their general competence. There are around 10 butterfly war chariots entering this place. If each of them has 1 second sky of ethereal god realm expert, we must not act rashly, hissed Shi Yen. I don't think so, Katua laughed. If they came here with such a strong force, they wouldn't have let us go that easily. I think they perhaps thought that we were troublesome, and they didn't want trouble. Fei Lan nodded. Shi Yen chuckled. Indeed. Anyway, we still need to make sure about it. We can't be impulsive. I understand. Dash. Around 10 butterfly war chariots were roaming between the glaciers. They were exploring as their soul consciousnesses raked around the area. Shi Yan's team gathered and quietly moved around the area that the butterfly war chariots were operating. Sometimes they stopped by the icicles to check. After 1 hour, there are around 50 of them. Each butterfly war chariot has 3 to 5 warriors. They have only 1 second sky of ethereal god realm expert, 2 first sky of ethereal god realm experts, and the rest are at original god realm or king god realm. Shi Yen opened his eyes and spoke to the others while standing on an iceberg. He lowered his voice. We can't defeat them at once. Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka Tua were shocked. They became cold immediately. They knew that Shi Yen had made up his mind. Zui Shi and Xianming were frightened, looking at him bewilderedly. They were so skeptical. Among this group of 4, Fei Lan was at second sky of ethereal god realm. Leona had first sky of ethereal god realm, while Ka Tua and Shi Yen were at third sky of original god realm. With these competencies, they wanted to strike the group of Dark Shadow clan. In Zui Shi's and Xianming's eyes, they were crazy. If they surround us and attack us at once, it will be hard to get out of it safely. As Leona used to be the regimental commander of the Bloody Legion of the Dark Firmament Divine Nation, she understood this kind of fighting well. She continued with a fierce face, divide them to attack. We will start with the weakest or the ones that stay furthest from their team. We must do this fast. Once we finish, we must move quickly. We just need to do so 3 or maybe 5 times max, and then we can destroy half of their force. Our chance to win will be bigger. We should do it like that. Tua nodded continually. He used to be the leader of a pirate force. He had his skills in team battles. He thought Leona's tactic was flawlessly perfect. Apparently it suited them the most. All right. Sure, Yen wasn't hesitant at the critical time. He decided the plan, squinting. Wait for a while. First, we will lock the butterfly war chariot that is flying furthest away from the others. He knew that they shouldn't delay. If they wanted to attack the Dark Shadow clan, they had to seize the chance when the others were scattered in their searching mission. Once the Dark Shadow clansmen found their targets, they would gather. If they attacked them at that time, it wasn't different from putting their heads in their fishnet. A flow of soul consciousness with space power moved like an invisible lightning strike between the glaciers. High realm warriors could feel the energy of something moving at breakneck speed. However, since that wisp of soul consciousness had space power, they couldn't lock it. 3 seconds later, Shiyen opened his eyes. He didn't talk, but flew fast towards a general direction. Leona and Tua didn't hesitate. They turned into a dark light and a gray mist, respectively, and followed him. Fei Lan slightly frowned. She begrudgingly urged her powers to bring Zhui, Shi, and Xianming, turning into a pale air current and flying towards a crack in the glacier. A butterfly war chariot was moving around a dark ice peak. 5 dark shadow warriors had half of their upper bodies protruding from the shell chariot. Their tentacles were moving around while they observed the place with cold, indifferent eyes. In that group of 5 members of the Dark Shadow clan, there was one at Third Sky of Original God Realm Expert, one at Second Sky of Original God Realm, and the other 3 had King God Realm. When their tentacles touched each other while floating around, they sent electric sparks into the void. It seemed like that was how their soul consciousnesses interacted and how it powered up their sensing powers. The soul consciousness of Third Sky of Original God Realm clansmen responded. The Dark Shadow Man shouted, his eyes sparkling. Someone's here. The other 4 Dark Shadow warriors cheered up. They gathered their soul consciousnesses, contributing energy to each other. Standing behind an ice rock, Shiyen quietly came closer. He arched his brows, his eyes cold. He could feel the Dark Shadow Man's soul consciousness sensing. Indeed, their sensing powers were terrifying. He had planned to come nearer before striking them. However, they had spotted him earlier. Without hesitation, he attacked instantly when his life signal was discovered. Shiyen's soul alter-spun, urging his refined power Upanishad. 3 electric-like ribbons flashed and then disappeared into thin air. Swoosh! 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 The 3 cold, white bone thorns shot out from a space slit with a power that could crush the void. They grumblingly stabbed the butterfly war chariot. Crack! 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 The impact upon the butterfly war chariot sounded clear and pleasing. It was so tough that it didn't shatter instantly. However, it was blown, spinning aimlessly. The 5 Dark Shadow men were dizzy. Their bodies were swaying hard on that war chariot. Swoosh! A beam of pale light crossed over. One of the Dark Shadow men at King God Realm had a bleeding hole in his neck. His blood was sent away like arrows. Swoosh! Swoosh! The white light continued to roar as if it came to take the souls away, which affected the souls severely. The butterfly war chariot was still spinning. The other 4 Dark Shadow men were panic-stricken. They couldn't help but scream awfully, trying to call their fellow men. Block! A cold and low voice arose like an evil spell. The butterfly war chariot was suspended in their space. Sounds couldn't even pierce through what seemed to be a barrier. The endless darkness had attacked them all of a sudden. The space confining them became so dark that they couldn't even see their own fingers. In that darkness, which was as thick as ink, their soul consciousnesses couldn't navigate. Seeing the darkness fall over them, Shiryen halted midway. He released his soul consciousness, searching the new target. When Ka-Tu'a and Phelan arrived, he hissed, "Leave it to Leona. We'll attack the new target." Then he dashed away, disappearing like an arrow. Dash. In a corner of the crystal icy world underground, the second sky of ethereal god realm expert took out a pocket compass. His face grimaced. The compass had many exquisite lines expanding around. It showed many spooky green light dots. Each of them represented one of his troops. The compass was his tool to locate his troops. However, the green light dots in his compass had disappeared continually. He knew what it meant when the light dots disappeared. His troopers had their souls connected to the compass. If one of them didn't die utterly, which meant that their soul altar still remained, the light dots wouldn't disappear even if their god bodies were smashed. That light dots represented the life seal of a soul. In another area, the 3 light dots disappear from his compass. The dark shadow expert paled. He hissed, "Stop our searching mission. Send my message asking our fellows to gather here." Immediately, the 2 first sky of ethereal god realm experts next to him were shaken. They hurried to send the message. "Someone is hunting us down." He took a deep breath, his restless mind gradually calming down. It felt like he had cold water splash away his flames of anger. "It's the group of humans we've seen earlier." His 2 troops had eyes as cold as a glacier. They shouted in unison, "They don't know whether they should live or not." Chapter 1014. A Youngster of the Dark Clan. Chapter 1014. A Youngster of the Dark Clan. The ice mountains and glaciers glowed fulgently. Deadly sharp icicles were scattered around. Hiding in a crack of the glacier in a corner of this icy world was a short and thin figure, his complexion grave. He gingerly hid his god body in the blind corner of the glacier while lifting his face to peep through the crack above his head. It was a youngster of the Dark Clan. He looked around 15 or 16 years old. He had a pair of dark pupils' eyes, which looked crazy and ruthless as if he was a bloody, insane slaughterer. The murderous aura on his body wasn't something young people at his age should have. His light purple hair was disheveled, covering his forehead and half of his face. The teenager squinted, his face evil. He didn't even blink when watching the butterfly war chariot of the Dark Shadow Clan appear above the crack. This teenager wore simple black warrior clothes, which exposed his arms like iron. His pair of arms had many scars weaving with each other. The scabs of his scars had fallen off a long time ago. Now they looked like odd snakes. He had been hiding in this glacier for a long time. To avoid the pursuit of the Dark Shadow Clan, he had been hiding all this time. His eyes sparkled with a harsh light. From his angle, he could see a butterfly war chariot moving away from this area. The youngster narrowed his eyes, paying more attention. All of a sudden, that butterfly war chariot exploded. Electric beams and fire burst off everywhere. It was hit severely. The youngster's pupils shrank, his face stiff. Boom! In the burning flame, 3 dark shadow men emerged. They were panic-stricken, shouting crazily. A muscular shadow emerged like lightning. 3 white bone thorns flew out like deadly weapons. They tore space, thrusting towards the 3 dark shadow men. An old woman with a lot of facial wrinkles appeared all of a sudden. She extended her hand, grabbing the void. 5 pallid threads shot out. They moved as if they could erode everything. They entered the god bodies of the 3 dark shadow men. As the teenager was watching, the 3 dark shadow men were weakened rapidly. Their bones exploded as the threads pierced through their skins. They were bleeding badly. A mysterious and yet evil black hole appeared, floating around. A powerful suction force fiercely came from that black hole, and swallowed the soul altars of the 3 dark shadow warriors. The teenager felt very chilled. He was frightened. He then hid deeper and more carefully as he was afraid that the others could sense him. The young man hovering above the crack recalled the 3 bone thorns. They turned into 3 beams of white light and disappeared into his sleeves. That young man was nonchalant as he looked around. His cold eyes suddenly looked in the youngster's general direction. The youngster was shaken. He had a strange feeling that the man had sensed him. His heart sank into the abyss. That young man seemed to know that he was hiding under the crack of the iceberg. However, he didn't do anything as he frowned, nodded to the old woman, and disappeared. The dead bodies of the 3 dark shadow warriors shriveled and dried up as if water and blood in their bodies were all sucked up. This looked extremely odd. The fragments of the butterfly war chariot fell grumblingly on the ice above the youngster's head, echoing clearly. The youngster felt tense. He hesitated for a while and then hurried to move through the ice cracks. He knew he was revealed. As he was afraid that the young man would use some malicious attacks, he instinctively moved to avoid. He had pierced through the ice cracks for a long time like a fast shuttle. After he felt relatively safe, he stopped and recalled the moment he had peeked at the others. He didn't know why he felt something towards that young man and the old woman. It seemed strange to him anyway. Vaguely, he felt like he had some connection with those 2, but he didn't know what it was. It was just his pure intuition. The teenager frowned, considering things inside the glacier. He hesitated whether or not he should go there and check. Was someone down there lately? Fei Lan looked at Shi Yan and asked uncertainly after they had left that area. She released the pale air current, covering Zhuoshi and Xianming. Yeah, I spotted life energy fluctuate down there. It was hidden. If I didn't cultivate death and life power Upanishad, I wouldn't have been able to spot it. Shi Yan nodded. That was a member of the Dark Clan, I suppose. The Dark Clan has a profound understanding of soul power. They're good at hiding soul aura and things. Perhaps that one was the target of the Dark Shadow Clan's troop. Why didn't you force him out? Fei Lan was surprised. Our target is the Dark Shadow Clan. We don't need to cause more trouble. Shi Yan shook his head, frowning. They know us too. It's not easy to ambush them anymore. It seems like we have to take real action. Yeah, we can't ambush anymore, Fei Lan frowned. We should wait for Leona and Ka Tuo. 3 minutes later, 2 shadows appeared with thick, murderous auras. Blood was still dripping from their fingers. Evidently, they had just murdered someone. Their hands smelled like fresh blood. We hunted them one more time, Ka Tuo grinned. Once they engage in close combat, the Dark Shadow Clansmen are limited. It's the 5th time, though. However, we can't find more scattered members. They are gathering by that expert. Fei Lan pointed to a direction, her voice mournful. That place. Leon and Ka Tuo looked at Shi Yan. Since Fei Lan's man and Leona's father were confined by the Dark Shadow Clan, the resentment they had for that clan was carved into their bones. And that clan also killed the king of demonic insects, devouring gold silkworm and the Holy Spirit god. If Shi Yan had a chance to avenge them, he wouldn't let it slip away. From Fu Wei, he knew that Zuo Lu, the great elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, also had a close connection to the Dark Shadow Clan, and he knew that this clan came from another galaxy. The resentment Fei Lan, Leona, and Shi Yan felt, the chance they had to slaughter a troop of the Dark Shadow Clan, and the opportunity to ask them where the Dark Shadow Clan imprisoned their loved ones were enough to support this massacre. The strong warriors of the opponents are still fine. The 3 ethereal god realm experts are staying with each other. We aren't afraid of battling them. However, we may get injured afterward. Shi Yan wore a cold face. He considered for a while and then turned to face a direction. He said, Perhaps we may try to use an available bait. Fei Lan's eyes brightened as she understood his idea. She agreed immediately. We can try once. Leona, Katua, Xianming, and Zwusher didn't know what they meant and just looked at them. Over there, Fei Lan pointed at a glacier. The one that the Dark Shadow Clan wants to find is there. He's hiding in the cracks of the glacier. If he moves, the Dark Shadow Clan will detect his aura immediately. They will go after him. Once they continue their investigation, their formation will be dismissed, and we will have a chance again. Should we force him to move? Katua laughed. Right. Shiryen pointed at the exact location of the teenager and said, You go there and pound the ice underground. I think he's hiding in there. He must use his energy to move. Once he does that, the Dark Shadow Clan will find him immediately. When that happens... Got it. Katua was excited. He smiled evilly as he dashed away. Boom! 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 Shortly after, they heard the noise of the ice shattering. Katua used his energy to attack the icicles over there. The several thousand-meter glacier cracked as it got hit. The teenager, hiding in the crack of the glacier, grimaced. He was foul-mouthed. However, he could only move around like a little mouse, piercing through the ice. His energy burst out, and his life magnetic field was exposed. I'm going there to force him to run. Once he leaves, the Dark Shadow Clan will chase after him with all their forces. In such an operation, the war chariots can't fly at the same speed. The battle line will be elongated. You two know what to do, said Shiryen to Fei Lan and Leona. The other two nodded with heavy, murderous auras. It's possible that they end up sending a strong team here while the others stay put. It's the best case anyway. Shiryen had a clear thought. If they send their strongest force, I'll hide so they won't see me. After you're done, come over there and find me. The other two nodded again. Shiryen talked to Zwusher and Xianming. Come with me. Xianming and Zwusher quietly followed him. Dash. The butterfly war chariots of the Dark Shadow Clan gathered between three glaciers in a fan formation. The second sky of ethereal god realm expert's face darkened while staying in his chariot in the center of their formation. He said, Found him. He thought for a while and then said, resolutely, I'm going there directly. You guys stay here and don't scatter. The Dark Shadow warriors on the other war chariots regarded him and said that they understand. One of the hovering butterfly war chariots flew away as fast as lightning. Inside the glacier's crack, the youngster was dashing fast. His face grimaced more, his brutal eyes watching over his head, sparkling with malicious light. Katua laughed wildly and continued to release his energy. The crazy, chaotic energy shot out madly, grumblingly pounding on the ice above the youngster's head. The youth was so enraged. He didn't know what kind of mental disorder that madman up there had. Why did he suddenly change his target and aim at me? He must hide away, or else that madman would hit him. But if he released his energy, his life magnetic field would appear, and the Dark Shadow Clansman would find him. Considering between getting instantly damaged or being caught by the Dark Shadow Clansman, he determinedly chose the former. He continued to rush while sending his regards to Tuo's family's 18 generations. While he ran madly, the young man who he had just seen with an old man and a lady emerged. That young man smiled, but his eyes didn't smile as he glanced at the area where the teenager was hiding underground. He mocked, Get up here. Don't you think it's annoying? The teenager felt chilled as if a venomous snake was staring at him and he couldn't get away. I don't want to kill you. I just want to use as bait. Come out. Don't make me force you, said Shiryen with squinted eyes. The youngster struggled in his mind. He used some other soul skills, but he found that he couldn't get rid of the other's soul blockade. As he couldn't help it, he emerged from the glacier with a pale face. His hair was a mess of crushed ice. He was so enraged as he said, What do you want after all? Help you survive this dilemma. Shiryen chuckled. generating his god domain and covering Kata, the youngster, Zhuoshi, and Xianming. The space around them rippled magnificently as dazzling light emitted around Shi. Shortly after, they disappeared into the void inside the glacier, leaving not even a single beam of an aura. Chapter 10:15. We seem to have some relations. Chapter 10:15. We seem to have some relations. A thin curtain like a steam with space ripples covered Shi group. The teenager was still cautious, maintaining a distance from Shi with eyes filled with anger. Then he turned and looked at the ice crystal opposite to them. He became totally baffled. That ice crystal was smooth and flat like a mirror, which reflected everything clearly. However, he couldn't see his image reflected in it, even though he was facing that mirror ice crystal. Any creature with a body would be reflected in the mirror. It was the rule of nature that people couldn't break. However, they were standing in front of the ice crystal, and that crystal didn't reflect their images. And he could still see that crystal. This observation made the youngster realize something. He quieted down. Don't worry. As long as you don't roll away, the Dark Shadow clansmen can't find you, even if they come here. Shi smiled, looking at him. Pondering for a while, he said, I'm Shi. I'm also an enemy of the Dark Shadow clan. We're like partners here. What's your name? Why are the Dark Shadow clansmen hunting you down? Sure, Yen didn't know why he had a soft spot for this youngster. He couldn't describe this feeling. It seemed like he had a close connection with this youth, subconsciously. This kid had so many cuts on his arms, and his body had a madly destructive aura. To other people, he looked extreme and evil. To Shi, he felt comfortable and relaxed seeing him. I'm Benny, snorted the teenager. His manner was still distant. Ah, Benny. Nodding and smiling, Shi continued asking, Why do the Dark Shadow clan want to kill you? It has nothing to do with you. The teenager put on a cold face, glaring at Shi. His eyes were filled with wicked resentment, as if he hated all the people in this world. Kid, you don't know how to live, right? Ka Tuo grinned fiendishly. Kid, do you want to die? Answer when you're asked. If you dare lie, you will face the consequences. Benny snorted, turned his face away. He didn't want to look at Ka Tuo. Ka Tuo's face stiffened. He was enraged. He smiled evilly as he was about to give the youth a lesson. All right, it's okay if he doesn't want to tell us. Shi rose his hand to stop Ka Tuo. Shi had an unknown feeling for that youth. So he didn't want Ka Tuo to bully him. That was why he stopped the man. Ka Tuo glared at the youth, smiling coldly. But he stopped there. Swoosh, swoosh. The engine started to hiss. Shortly after, they saw a butterfly war chariot landing. The war chariot carried 3 Dark Shadow men. They were the strongest warriors of this group. One was at second sky of Ethereal God Realm, and the other 2 were at first sky of Ethereal God Realm. The 3 Dark Shadow clansmen had half of their bodies protruding from the war chariot while the other half stayed inside. Their cold eyes were raking through the area, releasing soul consciousness to search. As Benny saw the 3 Dark Shadow men, his face became as cold and malicious as a sharp blade. He spat, cursing wholeheartedly, Damn those hounds! Although he was cursing them, his face was anxious and restless. He was afraid that the 3 Dark Shadow warriors could spot him. His nerves were tense as he was prepared to attack in any minute. Shi glanced at him. He frowned as he had a plan. The 3 Dark Shadow experts at Ethereal God Realm drove their war chariot around. They gradually became impatient. Their drifting soul consciousness scattered, covering the entire area. Benny quietly accumulated his energy. He was ready to run at any minute. His malignant eyes gazed at the 3 Dark Shadow clansmen. He was here. How can he disappear so strangely like that? The leader at second sky of Ethereal God Realm shouted, his voice sharp and cold. Yeah, it's true that he was here. The other two answered, nodding to indicate that the direction they senses was also here. Inside the light curtain, Benny's, a teenager from the Dark Clan, eyes brightened. He was standing just 100 meters from the dark ghost clansmen. It seemed like they could reach him with their arms quickly. With their sole ability, they should have been able to find and capture him. Their soul consciousnesses scattered and searched for a long time, and yet they hadn't found him. The three dark shadow experts seemed to be blind. Benny wasn't a fool. He contemplated, and then he figured it out something. He looked at Shi Yen, prying, "Space Power Upanishad." Shi Yen smiled and nodded. The youngster calmed down. He didn't look at the three dark shadow men anymore. He sat down, facing Shi Yen and Ka Tuo. He still maintained a distance from them while taking out a divine crystal to recover his energy. He looked a little relaxed. Not good. The leader of the dark shadow troops discolored as he stared at the compass in his hand. He shouted, "We were tricked." The other two dark shadow men glared at the compass in the other's hand. Their faces incomparably grimaced. The light dots in his compass blinked and then disappeared one after another. Within less than 1 minute, 5 light dots disappeared. It meant that the soul altars of their fellows had been utterly destroyed. Phelan and Leona were at Ethereal God Realm. They had the ability to challenge higher realm warriors. Their hands were soaked in blood as their fighting experiences were vast. The two of them had attacked the other troops all of a sudden. With the power of their malicious powers Upanishads, it was easy to make the dark shadow clansmen pay a bloody price within a short time. Looking at their fearful complexions, Shi Yen knew that Phelan and Leona succeeded and that they were killing the others. With their deeds, Phelan and Leona could smash the warriors who were at Ethereal God Realm. The gap of one whole realm wasn't something that could be made up. Those dark shadow clansmen didn't have Ethereal God Realm. At this moment, they were like sheep waiting to be slaughtered. They were killed rapidly. Seeing that the situation wasn't going right, the 3 dark shadow experts retreated like lightning. They didn't care about this area anymore. At this moment, they realized that they had fallen into their enemy's trap, a typical luring the tiger from its domain in the mountain strategy. Shortly after, the butterfly war chariot disappeared from their sight. He extended his hand and made a cut. It looked like he had torn space and drawn a hole in the light curtain. The cold air from outside flooded in, making people shiver. The youngster shuddered. He gawked at his image reflected in the ice crystal. He knew that he had walked out of the confined space. He looked at Shi Yen, asking, "I don't have any business here, right?" He understood clearly that he was used as bait. Now, they wouldn't want to keep him anymore, as the others had got what they wanted. Ka Tuo waved his hand. He couldn't help but shout at him, "Get lost! As far as possible, or else. The remaining dark shadow clansmen won't spare your life." Benny had a beam of malignant light in his eyes. He glared at Ka Tuo and then jumped into the crack of the ice underneath. He swayed and then disappeared. Shi Yen chuckled. That kid runs really fast. He's not ordinary, as he was able to avoid the Dark Shadow clan's pursuit until now. That kid is unusual. I don't know why I like him when I see him. I can't describe this feeling. Hey. Ka Tuo was shaken. He couldn't hold it, saying, "Senior, you have this feeling too?" Shi Yen was bewildered. "What do you mean?" Although I was foul-mouthed to him and I threatened him, I don't know why I also like this kid. I felt comfortable with him. It's like when I stay with you, Senior, or with Madame Leona and Precursor Phelan. I would instinctively consider treating him as someone in my family. Right. It's that feeling. I instinctively considered him as one of us. Ka Tuo didn't explain clearly. His wording was a little vague indeed. However, Shi Yen understood his idea clearly. He became perplexed. The light sparkled in his eyes while he contemplated. After a while, Shi Yen suddenly gave a low shout. "Benny!" The crispy noise of broken ice echoed from the crack underneath. They could hear staggering footsteps. That teenager was extremely flustered. Shi Yan was surprised. He smiled naturally. "Come here." He had known for a long time that this youngster had only third sky of King God realm. His competence was nothing special. However, his life was tough as he could survive the Dark Shadow Clan's pursuit. Of course, the reason why the Dark Shadow Clan couldn't kill him was because of his exceptional ability to conceal his life magnetic field. He could even avoid the sensitive Dark Shadow Clansmen. However, his powers of concealing the soul couldn't work on Shi Yan, the one who cultivated life power Upanishad. When the teenager heard Shi Yan shout for him, the reluctant and dispirited feeling when the soul was confined emerged in his heart once again. He was so infuriated, but he didn't have a solution for this. He emerged from the crack of the iceberg. His rage boiled his mind as he grunted. "What else do you want? More bait? I remember you all." Shi Yan's bright eyes lay on the mess of his hair covering his forehead, asking all of a sudden, "Wipe out the hair on your forehead. I want to see your glabella." The teenager shuddered, his eyes very frightened. He had a madly destructive aura on his body, which was about to explode like an erupting volcano. His aura rolled torrentially as if he had fallen into a disordered state of mind. Katua was shocked. As he recalled something, his eyes became incomparably hot. He stammered, "Say, Senior, you mean? He and we are." Sure, Yen didn't answer Katua. He was still looking at the youngster earnestly. His eyes gazed at the glabella covered under the teenager's hair. He didn't even blink. The destructive energy fluctuations on the boy's body became thicker. His eyes were filled with crazy thoughts. He said through his gritted teeth, his face malicious, "Are you the hounds of the God clan too?" Shi Yan took a deep breath to steady his restless mind. He told the youngster calmly, "Never mind. I got it. You don't need to do anything. You should go with us now. We'll defeat these dark shadow troops first. Then we'll talk. Our origins are related in some way." The dark youngster looked shocked. The madly destructive intention in his eyes disappeared slowly, his face perplexed. "Our origins?" Shi Yan smiled brightly and nodded in confirmation. He said, "Yeah, we are related somehow, but we have to put it aside for a while. Right now, we should finish our business first." Chapter 10:16 Break the Ice. Chapter 10:16 Break the Ice. What Shi Yan called business was killing people. A big beam of starlight carried Katua, Xianming, Zuoshi, and Benny forward like a ribbon at breakneck speed. After fewer than 10 minutes, they arrived at the gathering point of the Dark Shadow Clan. Fragments of the butterfly war chariots were scattered everywhere in the glacier with the dead bodies of the Dark Shadow clansmen. They all had tragic deaths. The ones Phelan had killed had their bodies eroded inside, leaving only skin bags that covered the bodies as their internal organs and bones were now a mess of bloody paste. The dead bodies with dark and fearful eyes were the work that was done by Leona. They also had darkness covering their bodies. The 3 ethereal god realm experts of the Dark Shadow Clan were urging their powers Upanishad, their soul consciousness roving and their faces pale. They were attacking Phelan and Leona together with a circle of 7 original God Realm Dark Shadow clansmen. They had also used their powers Upanishads, which released ice, thunderbolts, fire snakes, and sharp gusts. They were screaming and shouting at Phelan and Leona. The 3 leaders of the Dark Shadow Troop hissed and screeched ear-splittingly. They cultivated fire, ice, and lightning respectively. The ethereal extents of their powers Upanishad rolled torrentially with energy. While they were fighting Phelan and Leona, their energy shot out, piercing the ice, turning the icicles into power and scattering around like snow. Although Leona and Phelan looked a bit strenuous battling the 3 ethereal god realm experts and the other 7 original God Realm warriors. They were still moving swiftly. This was until they saw Shi Yen riding the starlight. Fei Lan's and Leona's tense nerves finally relaxed. Fei Lan touched a spot in the void above her head. Countless ash-gray dragons made of corrosive air began to move around, twisting their bodies dangerously. The pale, erosive air currents contained unpredictably vicious power. When the wandering soul consciousness of the dark shadow troopers touched her pallid air current, they felt so painful as their soul energies were drained rapidly. At this moment, Leona looked like a dark sun. The area around her was pitch black. Layers of dark energy rose like a raging flood. Her darkness seemed to be able to cover the brightly lit world. Fei Lan and Leona had the competencies to challenge the warriors whose realm was higher than theirs. While they were battling 10 dark shadow clansmen, their unique powers Upanishad had performed their advantage as well. The 10 dark shadow warriors couldn't approach them. Leona's darkness could shield most of the energy attacks from the different powers Upanishad as it blinded and preventing them from finding the targets. Even if they were sensitive, the dark shadow warriors couldn't lock Leona's position in the darkness. They couldn't even see their own fingers. If they couldn't lock her down, their powerful attacks would fail. It was a frustrated feeling when their attacks hit the void. You guys should deal with the 7 troopers below Ethereal God Realm. Sure, Yen grabbed something in the void and his starlight condensed into a big block of dazzling light. He notified Ka Tua, Xianming, and Zuoshi while space power was mobilized in his body. Sure, Yen disappeared shortly after. People couldn't see him as if he had gone to another dimension. Leave it to me. Ka Tuo's face was ferocious as he flew like a demogorgon. His power Upanishad rose torrentially, attracting and dragging pieces of ice and war chariot fragments towards his body. Together, they created a disorderly and chaotic magnetic field. Squinting, Ka Tuo's eyes had a bloodthirsty gleam. Wherever his big hand pointed at, the fragments of war chariots and broken icicles attacked it instantly. Those fragments moved like tornadoes, colliding with each other. Explosions and breaking noises arose like rattling heavy rain. The debris was now empowered by his chaos power Upanishad. Under his sole command, everything shot out thickly. The 7 original God Realm warriors surrounding them paled. They immediately changed their target. All now tried to resist Ka Tuo's attack. Zuoshi exhaled. Her white and soft hands made magical hand seals in the air. The melted glacier gathered, creating a sparkling pool with marvelous water waves. Those water waves then acted as a barrier that shielded the energy attack and protected her, Xianming and Benny. Benny was surprised. He frowned, mumbling to himself, "I don't need your protection." Crack, crack, crack. Benny's bones sounded as if someone was frying beans. A destructive aura shot up into the sky from his head. Benny's eyes were mad and brutal as if he had entered a magical domain. He became heartless and bloodthirsty like a beast with its basic instinct of killing. He crossed the wall made of water directly. Destructive energy rolled from him. Benny roared like a beast or a devil god wanting to destroy the world in his rage. He stormed towards a first sky of original God Realm Dark Clan Warrior. The Dark Clan Warrior seemed to know how dangerous he was. Seeing him coming, he was terrified. Benny had only 3rd sky of King God Realm Cultivation Base. However, the destructive energy fluctuated around him was enough to tear the whole sky when he released his God domain. Such energy fluctuations burst off like thunderclaps. Fragments of wrecked war chariots and pieces of ice automatically exploded within his God domain. His energy could destroy everything. A dark blue stone carved with many exquisite symbols emerged in his palm. Swoosh! The stone roared, transforming fast. Gradually, it became a massive meteorite with many archaic, unknown symbols. That rock had a blood color mark in the center, which was glowing immensely. It seemed to be the source of destructive energy of the rock. In just a blink, a small rock became a several hundred-meter mountain. It looked old but tough in an oval shape and was filled with devastating power. Benny touched his glabella. A flow of evil aura flooded that magical meteorite. The blood-colored mark in the center of the rock burst off with energy, sending countless archaic symbols away. The evil aura permitted the area. Boom! That meteorite pounded on that first sky of original god, Realm Warrior. This man had tried his best to resist, but he looked so weak under the massive rock. Boom! Boom! Although the rock hadn't touched his head, yet the pressing, earth-destroying aura had acted earlier. This man was blown off. Blood trickled from 7 holes in his face as that tremendous energy smashed him. Swoosh! The meteorite fell like an imposing mountain. That warrior was pounded into a mess of blood. His body was smashed, and his blood was diffusing like mist. Benny's dark purple eyes were filled with bloodthirsty intentions. He acted as if he had fallen into bedevilment. His evil, devastating aura twirled around his body as he continually controlled the strange rock that bombarded the dark shadow experts. He made some original god realm warriors helter-skelter. Swoosh! 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 The 3 electric spears flashed and then disappeared by the meteorite. They then suddenly stabbed one of the first sky of ethereal god realm experts in his back. They were moving fiercely with space energy added. That man felt something as he turned around strongly, his god body frozen rapidly. In just a blink of an eye, he had a thick ice layer covering him entirely, his eyes cold and dark. Boom! 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 The bone thorns thrust onto the ice armor on his back, drilling 3 holes. The man was blown away. He hurried to condense many ice walls in front of him, each of them 10 meters thick. As he cultivated ice power Upanishad, the environment here had boosted his power. He was also the one who had struggled against Phelan and Leona a lot. He had revived the glaciers around, shooting 100-meter-long icicles towards them. He gave Leona and Phelan a headache. In an environment that's suitable to the power Upanishad of a warrior, his competence significantly increased. In this world of ice, that expert had only first sky of ethereal god realm. However, the power he could perform could be more than his colleagues at second sky of ethereal god realm. The glaciers around could provide him with energy, ice beams, icicles, ice sabers, and more. Under his control, they were extremely dangerous. To defend, he could condense a thick ice wall instantly. To attack, he could use a long and sharp icicle. In this area, he was the toughest warrior of the Dark Shadow clan to deal with. Sure, Yin discreetly came to this place, and his first target was that man. Layers of ice walls were built. They looked thick and sparkling. The man was hiding behind his walls, his face cold as he curled his lips into a contemptuous smile. Only at third sky of original god realm. You come to see your death, eh? More than 10 ice beams of around 100 meters glistened. They were sharp like spears, shooting out from the ice walls. They were so fiercely strong that they could break everything as they darted toward Shuryen. The 3 bone thorns moved around. Shuryen calmly looked at him and said deliberately, "I am aiming at you because I can kill you." His soul altar slowly spun. His co-soul with the origin could control the energy of his body. His co-soul now looked like a fiery ball. Instantaneously, Shuryen became a man-torch. Fire burst out from his body, scorchingly like fire dragons. This kind of top-young fire was able to burn the whole world down. As his co-soul had merged with the origin, he had the magical abilities of 10 heaven flames he could use as he pleased. The blazing heaven flame was released. At that moment, he looked like a flaming sun. Fire dragons were sent out of his body one after another. They melted the 10 icicles in just a blink. More and more fire dragons roared and flew towards the thick ice walls. The thick ice walls melted rapidly at a speed that people could observe with naked eyes. The steam permeated the place while the man was screeching painfully. Ice power was his primary energy. Each of the ice walls and ice beams he had released had a wisp of his pure soul. He used his soul to adjust and control the power. When the ice walls and ice beams burned, it also hurt his soul, making him helter-skelter distressed. While the ice walls were melting, the blood vein ring on Sher Yan's finger flashed. A broadsword appeared in the bloodlight. A 100-meter-long bloodlight with a thick blood scent drew a beautiful, yet peculiar curve in the air when it hacked on the crystal-clear ice. Along with the grumbling noise of an iceberg scattering, people heard someone screaming tragically. The big eyes on the sword opened. A vicious aura was released, sending negative moods directly into people's hearts. It flooded fast like a rising tide, covering that area entirely. Chapter 1017 The Shocking Secrets. Chapter 1017 The Shocking Secrets, _ The icicles exploded in the middle of the ice wall. The negative moods surged torrentially from the broadsword, covering the dark shadow warrior who cultivated ice power. That man looked confused. His mind was invaded shortly after. Swish! His god body was cut off by a brutal bloodlight. It was divided into 2 pieces and was completely broken. At this moment, Sher Yan brought his sword and walked over to search for something. In the middle of the crushed ice, he placed his hand on that man's head. Crack! Crack! His skull was broken. A confining energy shrouded his broken skull, restraining his soul altar from flying away from his head. It was trapped inside his skull. His god bod was destroyed, but his memory and cognition still remained for a short time. As long as the soul altar didn't get away from his skull, he was still able to reason. Swoosh! 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 Invisible space sabers moved like shuttles in his head and twisted his sea of consciousness into a mess like a flax fabric ball, which prevented him from gathering his consciousness. A wisp of Sher Yan's soul consciousness directly entered his head, searching in the memory locus. Each brain had a seal of memory that stored the whole life experience. Each wisp of memory represented an experience of that person. As long as the soul altar didn't move, those wisps of memory lived forever. They wouldn't disappear. What Sher Yan was doing was extracting his memory. His soul consciousness moved like tentacles that searched through the man's wisps of memory. The memory of the dark shadow warrior was like a cocoon that Sher Yan was holding and pulling it open. The hidden secrets in his mind were open to Sher Yan. Placing one hand on that man's skull, Sher Yan searched through his memory. His face became stern, and then he grimaced. After a long time, Sher Yan opened his eyes, patting his hand. Crack! Crack! The man's skull exploded. As soon as his soul altar flew out, Sher Yan's black hole had swallowed it at once. Watching here and there, he found that the battle was over while he wasn't paying attention. Fei Lan and Leona had killed their opponents. Ka Tua, Benny, Zuasher, and Xianming had also fished the other original God Realm Dark Shadow Warriors. Ka Tua and Benny had done almost everything. Zuasher and Xianming just offered them a little help. The energy of the dead gathered, congregating in Sher Yan's acupuncture points. However, he didn't look happy at all. Quite the contrary, he had a solemn complexion. Fei Lan and Leona quietly gathered, frowning as they looked at him. After a long time, Sher Yan had finished absorbing the essence qi of the dead around him. He took a deep breath and said strenuously, "The Dark Shadow Clan is a vassal clan of the God Clan." Fei Lan and Leona changed their countenances. They had a gleam of fear in their eyes. The holder of the blood mark, of course, had no good attitude for the God Clan. That perfect clan who called themselves gods had piles of acts of genocide in the big star areas. They had killed countless people. The God clan used to visit Raging Flame Star area. They had even left their inheritance too. Leona, Phelan, and Katua had known the God clan's conspiracy. They had considered warriors of Raging Flame Star area as pigs or sheep that they've been raising in pens. They had imparted them powers, Upanishad, just to make the creatures there stronger. However, it was the same reasoning as feeding the animals to fatten them. Once they had grown and their realms had reached a certain level, the God clan would select excellent warriors and absorb their flesh and energy to benefit the God clan's members. The gifts of the God clan to Raging Flame Star area were just to benefit themselves later. After Raging Flame Star area had grown to a specific level, they would come to harvest and choose the top strong warriors for themselves. This could be seen in God Perishing Land. The wounded warriors of the God clan stayed in the center of the stone steels with demonic flowers to absorb blood and energy to heal themselves and recover from their wounds. Hearing that the Dark Shadow clan was the hound of the God clan, Phelan and Leona became tense. The grudge they had against the Dark Shadow clan grew deeper. The God Perishing Land used to confine an expert of the bloodthirsty. His blood had been continuously absorbed through the evil chains. Gulu, the expert, who cultivated Chaos Power Upanishad, had escaped that place, but he couldn't escape his culpa later. His soul altar was broken, but he had managed to leave his inheritance. The bloodthirsty kept the resentment towards the God clan to its bones. I just extracted his memory. Shiryen paled, his voice unnatural. The Dark Shadow clan is the guard to the God clan. They help the God clan make a passage to another galaxy. The Dark Shadow clan has a special physique, which helped them survive the chaotic space basin. They usually connect two star areas, facilitating the God clan's invasion. Between two star areas, there would usually be a very thick barrier, which the God clan's experts couldn't break through easily. The Dark Shadow clan was in charge of this mission. When the God clan wanted to invade a star area, the Dark Shadow clan would be the vanguard. They spent the time to clean the barrier between two star areas, so the force of the God clan could arrive after them easily. Through the memory of this Dark Shadow expert, Shiryen knew that the space barrier connecting Agate Star area and God Star area was about to be clear after thousands of years of their labor. This man used to work in that barrier area. He used a special tool to dig through a small area of the chaotic space basin. Many Dark Shadow clansmen had to do the combing work before they became strong enough to do other works. It was some kind of training to them. From that man's memory, this was the first time Shiryen knew that God Star area was the cradle of the God clan and also where their headquarters were based. God Star area had an ancient continent which still existed until now. In that area, the God clan had developed their powers Upanishad to the acme. Each great family of the God clan was so powerful and intimidating. The heads of the 12 formidable families were at third sky of incipient God realm. Also, they had dozens of first sky and second sky of incipient God realm experts as the pillars of the families. The total number of experts at incipient God realm of the God clan was more than 100. They also had countless original God realm and ethereal God realm warriors. Together, they had created the prosperous glory prestige of God Star area. Each family of the 12 great families controlled 1 to 3 different star areas. They had so many life stars and mineral stars. They transported countless kinds of bulk materials to God Star area from the other areas daily to nurture the greatest monster, the God clan of God Star area. The God clan had many vassals. The Dark Shadow clan was just one of them. The God clan was like a malignant tumor, crazily invading big star areas. The experts of the star area, which this clan had laid its eyes on, had only 2 options: die or become their hounds to serve the great 12 families in invading the new star area. That was how they could survive. God clan had laid their eyes on the entire universe. Rumors said that half the star areas in this universe were invaded. The God Clan had a unique method called the Seed when they planned to invade a remote but valuable life star. After the members of the God Clan died, they could refine their souls through a blood sacrifice and be reborn as a life seed. This kind of life seed could travel through the galaxies faster than the fastest battleships. One life seed could move like a meteor in outer space. Once it fell on a life star in a remote, faraway galaxy, it could gather Earth and heaven energy to grow slowly into a clansman of the God Clan. The life seeds would grow fast in those extrasolar life stars, and they would invade the place. If the life star had strong native dwellers, the God warriors would connect to their families and ask them to send more experts. Using this method, the 12 great families of the God Clan in God Star area had forcefully invaded many life stars away from God Star area. In that man's memory, the method called Life Seed had shocked Shiryen. He finally knew why Grace Mainland had God Clan. He could confirm that the God Clan members in Grace Mainland that year were the life seeds that had moved through many space barriers to land and grow there. However, in the end, the other 9 clans of Grace Mainland had expelled them, which ended their invasion. After the ancient time and antiquity time, the God warriors descended the Life Star and escaped from there. They knew that Grace Mainland wasn't worth sending more troops to invade because its energy was about to run out soon. It wasn't worth their second invasion and travel of thousands of miles away for a dying planet. Also, Shiryen now knew that Grace Mainland wasn't the homeland of the God Clan. The God Star in God Star area was their cradle. The more he knew about the God Clan, the heavier his mood became. Facing the race that called themselves gods, it was the first time Shiryen had a helpless and dispirited feeling. There were more than 100 incipient God Realm experts, countless ethereal God Realm, original God Realm, and King God Realm experts. Each family of the God Clan had the ability to destroy an entire star area. This kind of power was enough to dominate the whole universe. This time they laid their eyes on Agate Star area. To be exact, only a family of the God Clan named Ascot was plotting against Agate Star area. The Ascot family was one of the 12 great families of God Clan. 10,000 years ago, they had assigned Dark Shadow Clan to go to this place and clear the space barrier. From the memory of that man, Shiryen got news that had terrified him badly. The Dark Shadow Clan and Great Elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion had made an agreement. Zwalu had officially submitted to the God Clan. Zwalu was utilizing all of his forces to get the Pavilion master position. He wanted to use Potion and Tool Pavilion to raise the storm of war in Agate Star area. He would make the prominent clans of Agate Star area attack and kill each other. Then the clans of Agate Star area wouldn't unite to deal with it due to their resentment when the Ascot family came. The Ascot family was one of the 12 great families of the God Clan. It had 9 incipient God Realm experts. However, it was a little bit strenuous if this family wanted to eat Agate Star area in one bite. This clan wanted to claim Agate Star area exclusively. They didn't want to use the power of the other families. Thus, they had planned on using the superpower position of Potion and Tool Pavilion to disorder the entire star area. Then they could come and clean the battle sites at ease. The memory of this Dark Shadow expert contained shocking secrets, which had shaken Shiryen hard. It was the first time he knew the real competence of the God Clan. Now he had pressure like a mountain hanging above his heart. His mood was down and was sinking into the bottomless abyss. Chapter 1018. Traceable to the same stock. Chapter 1018. Traceable to the same stock. Underscore. The more he knew about the God Clan, the heavier the pressure that Shiryen felt. The God Clan was like a mountain that he would never be able to climb to the peak. This kind of pressure had suffocated him. There were incipient God Realm experts in every one of the 12 families of the God Clan. The Ascot family had the power to invade Agate Star area, and they seemed to be making progress. The famous Dark Shadow clan in Agate Star area was just a vassal force that was the Hounds of God clan. This made Sher Yen grimace. Aside from Benny, Zwa, Sher, Leona, Phelan, and Katua paled as if they had the same mountain pressing their chests while listening to Sher Yen. Until now, they had always considered the God clan as the archenemy of the Bloodthirsty's line, and the God clan wouldn't give up chasing after Bloodthirsty's descendants. No matter how hard they tried to hide away, they would never have a quiet day as long as the God clan existed. However, facing the God clan, they felt so small. They were like mayflies trying to shake a big tree. Did you get any information about them? Fei Lon contemplated for a while before asking with worries. A 1,000-mile journey begins first with a single step. It will take a long time to fight against the God clan. At this moment, our powers are far behind theirs. Thus, we must consider increasing our power as the top priority. Fei Lon was talking about the 2 members of her Dark Sky family. Leona also had this expectation. No, Sher Yen sighed. That man didn't have information about them. Perhaps he didn't participate in that work. We must carry it step by step. Dealing with the God clan. Benny, the dark teenager, asked with an odd countenance. You know how intimidating they are and you dare to resist? You guys don't value your lives. In this vast universe, fewer and fewer people dare to face the God clan. Until now, there has only one force that had almost destroyed the God clan, but even that was just almost. Eventually, it failed and its master was gone. Fei Lan's eyes glistened, looking at the youngster. Which was that force? From the memory Sher Yen had got, the 12 families of the God clan had invaded half of this universe. They had so many life stars and henchmen. Their powers were unimaginably formidable. The Ascot family alone had dared to plot against Agate Star area. From only this, they knew how intimidating the God clan was. But if there was a force that had almost destroyed the God clan, Fei Lon thought that it was unimaginable. Everybody looked at Benny. Under their gazes, Benny snorted, but he kept his mouth shut. Although he was worried, his eyes were arrogant. Sher Yen looked at him, chuckled, and said, as if he was considering something, "The force you mentioned has some relationship with you, right?" Benny straightened his back like a sharp sword coming out of its sheath, showing its talent. He admitted naturally and confidently, "Yeah, it's true. In this vast universe, only our force used to have the strength to force the God clan act together. We'd worn out the power of their entire clan." Listening to him, Sher Yen and Ka Tuol laughed evilly. Benny thought that they were laughing at him. He put on a grim face, shouting, "You don't believe me!" Sher Yen and Ka Tuol exchanged looks and laughed harder. "We do. Of course, we believe you." It was over Benny's expectation when Sher Yen nodded continually. "I believe in your words. In this vast universe, we have countless galaxies out there, and we know there used to be a force like that, the force that had almost destroyed the God clan's huge foundation. I also know you are one of the descendants of that force." Fei Lon and Leona were astounded. Benny was startled. He threw a contemptuous glance. Apparently he didn't buy it. "You know nothing. Brett, show respect. People here are all your precursors." Katua smiled and told him off, but he didn't get angry. "Precursors?" The contempt in Benny's eyes grew. He shook his head, speaking seriously. "You don't deserve that title." Fei Lon and Leona frowned, looking at him with dark eyes. They were provoked, obviously. Waving his hand, Sher Yen signaled them to calm down. He descended from the air and raised his hand to make a cut. A space saber cut off the pointy peak of an ice mountain, creating a flat crystal ground of around several thousand square meters. Sher Yen was the first one to land on the beautiful crystal platform on the mountain. He quieted down and sat neatly. His aura began to surge. The wisps of negative moods floated around him strangely as he refined the energy that his acupuncture points had absorbed. Fei Lon, Leona, and Ka-Tua cheered up. They kept silent, landing and sitting cross-legged in front of him. They looked at him with a longing face, waiting for something in silence. Zhua Shi and Xianming were surprised. They also came to the crystal platform and used divine crystals to restore their energy. Only Benny, the dark teenager, was still hovering above their heads. He hesitated for a while before saying, "I'm done with my mission as your bait. I don't have any business here anymore. Guys, I hope to not see you again." When Benny finished, he wanted to fly away immediately. Ka-Tua lifted his head, laughing and tapping on the clear ice next to him. He said, "Kid, come sit here." Benny put on a cold countenance. His eyes showed his wild, brutal will. A devastating energy burst out of his body. "Are you done now?" Ka-Tua was still laughing, as if he wasn't afraid of that teenager's outrage. He patted the ice next to him and said casually, "Come here as you're told. Don't talk nonsense. Behave, or else Daddy will kick your ass." Fei Lon and Leona looked at him, their faces skeptical. They could see that Ka-Tua wasn't angry at all. It made Fei Lon and Leona more curious when they studied Benny. Gradually, they had some different thoughts. "Come sit here." Fei Lon pondered for a while and then pointed at the place next to her, urging the youngster, "Hurry up." Benny had third sky of King God realm cultivation base. He knew where he was. He thought that he could survive facing Ka-Tua at third sky of original God realm. But if Fei Lon took action, he knew he wouldn't escape death. As he was able to survive until now, he wasn't an impulsive fool. Thus, the youngster reluctantly sat next to Ka-Tua, even though he was so enraged. He clenched his jaws. He glared at Ka-Tua maliciously. He had made up his mind. When he had a chance, he would make Ka-Tua lose his face. "Kid, what kind of look is that? You mother****. Daddy wants good things for you, so I asked you to come. You brat. You don't know what's good or bad." Ka-Tua laughed and couldn't help but scold. "What's good is your mother." Benny was obviously on the weak side, but his voice wasn't weak at all. His face reddened when he quarreled with Ka-Tua. "What the heck is wrong with you? Wait until I get stronger. I will chop you off like I mince veggies." Good, good, good. Ka-Tua wasn't angry, but smiling. "I'm waiting for you to become stronger because I can show you something good to taste then. My senior won't have a reason to stop me at that time." "Shut up." Fei Lon frowned as she couldn't hold it anymore. Ka-Tua quieted down immediately. He retracted his head, shutting himself up. Benny didn't know why he felt afraid of this old woman. He gritted his teeth and sat down, frowning. No one knew what he had in his mind at this moment. Time flew slowly. For hours later, Shiyan opened his eyes. His pupils looked dark and wonderful, like an immense galaxy with a light of energy. His soul altar seemed to about to fly out. Wisps of pure energy, floating like light emitted from his acupuncture points. They headed to his soul altar, flooding his entire body. Fei Lon, Leona, and Ka-Tua were happy. They removed the headband, showing their foreheads with the blood marks, which had the cloud shape with marvelous energy fluctuation. Benny, the dark youngster, was very bored. He just wanted to leave this place. All of a sudden, he was dumbstruck, as if he had just got hit by lightning. He sat completely perplexed. Swoosh! Swoosh! The tangled hair covering his forehead suddenly burned like fire. His glabella became so hot that he couldn't help it. A similar blood mark appeared on his forehead, little by little. You guys! Benny stammered, pointing at Fei Lon, Leona, and Ka-Tua. He fumbled with his hands, his body shaking. "You guys have it too?" "Don't talk nonsense. Just take the energy." Ka-Tua glared at him maliciously and hissed, "Focus your soul on the imprint and release your soul altar." When the energy pours into your body, guide it through your body and congregated in the center of the sea of consciousness. Phelan and Leona also looked at Benny, at his blood mark to be exact. The doubts in their minds were gone. The two of them glanced at Shi Yan, who was releasing energy. They understood it, smiled, and nodded at Benny. Benny had survived many dangers in the immense sea of stars. He had experienced grudges and pains from many people. Leona's and Phelan's smile had unlocked some place in his heart. He felt very comfortable, as if he was seeing his beloved family. He couldn't help but have watery eyes. "Hey, brat, why are you still baffled?" scolded Ka-Tua. Benny felt as if he had a bucket of icy water poured on his head. He shook, but he didn't squabble with Ka-Tua anymore. He scratched his head, smiling embarrassedly. He followed Ka-Tua, opened his soul, and sent his soul consciousness to the blood mark as Ka-Tua had instructed him to. In the next moment, a flow of extremely pure energy poured directly into his blood mark in his glabella. After that energy got through the blood mark, it expanded and entered his bones, flesh, and blood, flooding his essence, Chi ancient tree. That energy overflowed his sea of consciousness, giving some tonic to his soul altar. He felt like his soul altar was a dried well that now had cool and refreshing water. This feeling was so amazing. Benny's thin body shivered. His eyes closed, but his face was twitching as he was thrilled. The energy continued to pour into his blood mark fiercely. Benny's happy countenance became clearer. If he weren't in a particular situation, he would have laughed out loud to vent his big thrill in his soul. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. His soul altar suddenly spun fast. The edge of his soul altar shot out light dots of destructive energy, immersing his mind into a marvelous, intent domain. Benny felt as if he was severely hit, his mind shaken. He was baffled. After several seconds, his lips twitched. He stooped his head and mumbled, I've broken through easily, just like that. Oh my God. Chapter 1019, Destruction Power Upanishad. Chapter 1019, Destruction Power Upanishad. Sitting cross-legged on the ice platform of the glacier, Shi Yan, Phelan, and the other were meditating. The red halo of the blood marks in the glabella of Phelan, Leona, Ka-Tua, and Benny slowly dimmed. They were stabilizing the strange energy in their bodies to improve their powers. After an unknown time, Phelan was the first one to wake up. She checked Benny, her face surprised. The destructive energy fluctuated clearly on Benny's god body. It looked like he was in a critical moment of his breakthrough. Light of evil energy rippled, covering him thickly. Benny had his bones produced cracking sounds as his bones and joints were quenched. After a while, Leona woke up, frowning at Benny. Zhua, Shi, and Xianming stooped, saying nothing. They knew that Shi Yan's team had many secrets, which they could hardly imagine. Shi Yan woke up after that, chuckled, and then said, Seems like we got more progress. Ka-Tua has his energy increase extremely fast this time. I think he will break through soon, said Leona. Phelan nodded. Benny and Ka-Tua were still immersed in their incredible intent domains. One had a chaotic, twisted energy twirl around the body, while the other had a rippling, destructive energy. 5 days had passed in just a blink. Ka-Tua stood up quietly, his eyes glistering like lightning. He grinned. I'm about to break through. He looked at Shi Yan, Sr. How about you? I need the realm comprehension. I still need more time to improve it. Shi Yan smiled. But I think it won't take too long. Everybody looked at Benny. Energy, fluctuating from Benny's body, ceased. His face was calm as his eyebrows twitched. He opened his eyes under people's attention. Benny was so excited. I've broken through. They all looked at each other and smiled. I couldn't believe that you guys were the same as me. Benny was so thrilled. I thought I was alone in this world. Seems like I won't be lonely anymore. Tell us about yourself, said Phelan. Benny's eyes darkened. He sighed and said, "Our family received the inheritance of destruction, power, Upanishad. My ancestor used to be a member of the bloodthirsty cortege of 8. We controlled dark exterminating star area. 7,000 years ago, my ancestor left the dark exterminating star area and disappeared. Afterward, our dark exterminating star area was invaded. The God clan bathed my family in blood. Except for me, everyone was killed. I tried to survive in dark exterminating star area, but the God clan found me. I had to run and hide everywhere. I found a damaged space channel, so I took risks and entered it. Afterward, I appeared in Shadow Ghostly Prison. The Dark Shadow clan spotted me and tried to hunt me down. The Invincible family, controlling the entire dark exterminating star area, was massacred by God clan. Naturally, it wasn't a happy memory." Benny sighed, his face dark and ferocious. "I will take revenge sooner or later." "Your meteorite has destruction, power, Upanishad. Is it an original incipient grade weapon?" asked Shiryen. Benny was bewildered for a while and then took out the rock, which had a blood mark in the center. It was a fist-sized rock in his hand, and of course it couldn't compare to the intimidating power that it had performed previously. "It's from my ancestor. I think it's an original incipient grade weapon. One day after my ancestor had disappeared, it fell directly into my hand from the sky as I was cultivating in the prohibited area of my family. It gave me the destruction power Upanishad from my ancestor. From that day, I knew something bad might happen to my ancestor." Pausing for a while, Benny continued, "As far as I've known, the 8 members of Bloodthirsty's cortege all had divine weapons that match with the powers Upanishad. You guys don't have it?" "Oh." Fei Lon, Leona, and Katua felt embarrassed, shaking their heads. "I know they exist. If you haven't seen them, perhaps they are hidden somewhere," said Benny earnestly. Fei Lon and the other 2 couldn't help but look at Shiryen. "I don't know either." Shiryen opened his arms, his face begrudging. He suddenly recalled something, so he contacted the Blood Vein Ring to ask about this. Unfortunately, after the Blood Vein Ring had helped Blood Devil with the Death Power Upanishad, it had used a lot of energy. As it went dormant, it didn't answer Shiryen. According to the ring's spirit, its memory hasn't completely been restored yet. It couldn't remember everything. Perhaps one day, when its memory was all gathered, it could give them more support and direction. The Blood Vein Ring was a relic of the master of the Bloodthirsty cortege of 8. It was the critical key that locked the big secret of the great 8 inheritances of the Bloodthirsty cortege of 8. As he said he didn't know, Fei Lan's group was disappointed. The original incipient grade weapons could promote users who had the same class of power tremendously. Today, the 3 of them all had the competence to challenge higher realm experts. Once they found divine weapons that supported them well, their fighting abilities would enter a whole new level, reaching an unimaginable realm. With the giant blood shield, Shiryen had used his cultivation base at Third Sky of Original God Realm to parry a strike of Du Lin, a Third Sky of Ethereal God Realm expert. From that event, they knew the value of divine weapons. Seeing how strong Benny was with his destructive divine weapon despite his low realm, they started to yearn for their own weapons. "What do you know about the Bloodthirsty bloodline?" asked Phelan. "The Bloodthirsty line I've mentioned was the only force that could cope with God Clan in this vast universe. My ancestor was one of the members of the Bloodthirsty cortege of 8. He had Third Sky of Ethereal God Realm cultivation base. I only know about his legends that were told through generations in my family. When my ancestor was still in dark exterminating star area, the God Clan had never dared to come. Quite the contrary, we often trespassed into their territory. I heard at the peak of the Bloodthirsty line, we had struck ancient God Star area where the God Clan stayed. We had forced the 12 great families of the God Clan to join hands to cope with us. However, they still had to bear the significant loss. Benny said with expectation, "Our precursors used to be extremely intimidating. However, for my generation, we can't do anything. The God Clan is chasing us around." "You know any details?" asked Shiryen. Benny shook his head. "My grandfather told me my ancestors' legends. I don't know the details." Hesitating for a while, he said, "You guys all have the inheritances, but you know nothing about that battle." The others gave a forced smile, shaking their heads reluctantly. Benny was amazed. He thought for a while and suddenly realized something. He looked at Shiryen and said, You aren't like us. You've sent energy to us through our inheritances, right?" Shiryen nodded. You are the heir of the master of the bloodthirsty cortege of 8, aren't you?" shouted Benny. Shiryen nodded again. Benny was bewildered. He suddenly became restless as he unnaturally and embarrassedly wanted to give him a respectful greeting etiquette. Waving his hand, Shiryen stopped him and smiled. "No need to consider those trivial matters. You can call me a senior like Ka-Tua, okay?" Benny was astounded. He nodded, his face strange. "There is a proverb in my family. It reads that as long as the inheritance of the master of the bloodthirsty cortege of 8 remains, they can thrive. There will be a chance for us to defeat the God Clan and fulfill our great merit." "Oh." Shiryen was surprised, talking with a smile. "Is that so?" Benny nodded and said, "Our precursor used to say that as long as the inheritance of the master remains, the bloodthirsty line will be raised again." Fei Lan, Leona, and Ka-Tua were shocked. "For the time being, we don't need to discuss these things further. Our top priority now is to expose the God Clan's conspiracy. The Dark Shadow Clan is about to clear the passage leading to Agate Star area. Zwolu, the great elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, is their ally. He will help the God Clan stir up the entire Agate Star area and put it into wars." Shiryen said, his face stern. "If we want to cope against the Ascot family of the God Clan, we can't do it alone. We must gather forces around Agate Star area." Everybody nodded and their moods were down. Shiryen pondered for a while and then sent a drop of demon blood away. It then turned into a blood-red light, flying away. "Tui!" He felt the tint of sweet blood in his mouth as he spat out blood, which then turned into red mist. His face paled. He used the demon blood to locate Fu Wei. However, since Fu Wei's realm was higher than his, he got a backlash. He hurt himself. However, his eyes brightened as he said, "Fu Wei isn't far away from us. She has reached Shadow, Ghostly Prison. Potion and Tool Pavilion has ears and eyes everywhere in Agate Star area. As they are on the opposite side of Zwolu, we can use their powers to send the news of the God Clan's invasion to the big clans of Agate Star area. Senior, Ja Duo of Potion and Tool Pavilion doesn't like us. Do you still want to meet them?" Ka-Tua didn't like this idea. "It's different now. As elder of the Potion and Tool Pavilion, Ja Duo knows how critical the God Clan's invasion can be." His face darkened. Shiryen took a deep breath. "We just need to give them the information, and then we will leave. We don't need to stay with them." Fei Lan and Leona nodded silently. Everybody adjusted their conditions and then got out of this icy world under the surface of the mineral star. They immediately departed in the direction that Shiryen had shown. A vastly desolate life star inside Shadow, Ghostly Prison. Many battleships were anchored in the forest. They looked like ferocious beasts crouching on the ground. They were surrounding a large, murmuring lake. Sometimes battleships moved in and out of that lake. This was one of the bases of Potion and Tool Pavilion in Shadow, Ghostly Prison. The lake led to the space underground, which was open magically like a holy land. Standing on a high jade tower in the middle of the lake was the senior management group of Potion and Tool Pavilion. They seemed to be waiting for something. Fu Wei and Jia Duo were standing there with the others. Xia Xianyan is an outstanding expert of the Fighting League in Shadow, Ghostly Prison. She leads a force of the Fighting League. Her power Upanishad is exquisite indeed. The hegemon of Fighting League appreciates her a lot. In Shadow, Ghostly Prison, Fighting League is the only force that can scope with Dark Shadow Clan. As the Great Elder Zhuolu is cooperating with the Dark Shadow Clan, we will support the Fighting League. We will attack the Great Elder. Jia Duo said in a low tone, his face brutal. Fu Wei furrowed her bold brows. 100 years ago, Xia Xianyan appeared in Shadow, Ghostly Prison. The hegemon of Fighting League has favored her ever since. She has opened her world in the Fighting League within a short period. She's now the spokeswoman of Fighting League. But she's not from our Agate Star area, is she? We don't need to focus on this. Jia Duo waved his hand. We just need to know that the Fighting League is the native force of our Agate Star area. She'll be arriving soon. Pay attention. Do not discuss her foreign identity. We shouldn't displease her. Fu Wei nodded reluctantly. Chapter 1020 Women's Intuition. Chapter 1020 Women's Intuition _ A massive asteroid was moving by the edge of Shadow, Ghostly Prison. That asteroid was a little smaller than a life star. However, it was really big. This asteroid was dark brown as if it was made of metal, and it felt like the rigid metal indeed. This asteroid was like a broadsword with 2 sharp edges. It had many giant crystal artilleries that stood on the deck. All of them were loaded, emitting a dense energy. They were ready to shoot in any minute. Many metal buildings stood firm on the asteroid. They looked like spears jutting up into the sky with a sharp aura. A black jade high platform was built atop a pointy tower. A ghost-mark old man who looked evilly cunning was sitting on that black jade platform. He was the Great Elder Zhuolu of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Zhuolu was holding an octagonal mirror in his hands. He was frowning, his 5 fingers continually controlling something. His fingers were flipping through many images. This octagonal mirror seemed to store tens of thousands of images and information. It was indeed magical and profound. If someone knew about Potion and Tool Pavilion secrets, he would recognize that it was one of the heart eyes of the satellite eye. The heart eye could connect the satellite to get information that was accumulated over tens of thousands of years in Agate Star area. Zhuolu was searching for something with a stern face. Standing next to Zhuolu was a young man. It was Du Lin. Du Lin bent his body, silently watched, and waited for Zhuolu's order. The images in the heart eye changed regularly. All of a sudden, it projected a blood cloud-shaped mark. Some special characters were floating, blinking next to that mark and giving information related to that mark. Zhuolu became stern. He observed the heart eye while electric beams flashed in his eyes. Du Lin, standing next to him, couldn't help but look at the octagonal mirror. He focused, his face carrying some unknown intention. Is the mark on the divine weapon you saw his blood, cloud-shaped mark? After a while, Zhuolu pushed the heart eye towards Du Lin to let him see the mark in it. Yes, that's it, reported Du Lin. Zhuolu nodded quietly, his face extremely grimaced as he said, This mark has appeared twice in Agate Star area. There were 2 men with this mark on their foreheads. They are. Zhuolu halted midway, his eyes frightened. Du Lin was surprised. He couldn't help but step forward, asking gingerly, Who had this mark? Zhuolu didn't reply. He still stared at the symbols that described the blood mark in the heart eye. The longer he looked at it, the grimmer his face became. After a while, he put the heart eye away, taking a deep breath. One of them cultivated death power Upanishad. He had appeared in Agate Star area for a while and raised a bloody storm here. He had killed so many experts of Agate Star area. This man, he arrived in Agate Star area several thousand years ago. He made his bloody debut in Broken Star Field in Far West region. Then he appeared in more areas. Each time, he used his brutal deeds to kill many warriors. Du Lin was frightened. He bit his lower lip, screaming in astonishment. What's his realm? Zhuo Lu lifted his head to look at the young man in the way that had reached his soul. The one you encountered isn't this man. Or else, you would have been killed already. His realm isn't clear. According to the documents stored in Satellite Eye of Potion and Tool Pavilion, warriors died in his hands were at first and second sky of ethereal god realm. Death appeared everywhere he visited. He didn't leave any survivor. If you have met him, you wouldn't have survived to talk to me. Du Lin's eyes were filled with deep fear. The other was the invincible legend of Agate Star Area. He cultivated Despair Power Upanishad. He used to be domineering in Agate Star Area. His existence could be deemed invincible. Tens of thousands of years ago, he was the powerful tycoon. However, he disappeared when he was at his peak. No one knew where he had gone. However, he was born and had grown up in Agate Star Area. Legends said that when he was breaking through to the ethereal god realm, a blood mark appeared on his glabella. Since then, his power changed in quality. His realm became so profound. Zhuo Lu's eyes flashed like a ghost flame. He continued slowly, his voice low. No one knows why he got that blood mark while breaking through to ethereal god realm. However, he used to say that he got a mission in his perception. Still, no one knows what his mission was. Anyway, since he got that mark, his characteristics had changed dramatically. He became extreme and crazy. He was constantly challenging the experts of Agate Star Area. Each time he succeeded, he put himself into an extreme situation to break through. He had challenged the warriors whose realms were one level higher than his. He brutally killed them all. Du Lin was shaken. He suddenly had a fear, his countenance becoming more restlessly anxious. The two of them had the same marks on their glabellas. Although they appeared in Agate Star Area in different eras, they had created the same feast of blood. They were the two unstoppable madmen. However, the two of them had disappeared. It seemed like they didn't leave any inheritance. Zhuo Lu paused for a while and then frowned. The one you encountered isn't one of them. Otherwise, you would have been killed. Du Lin beamed a forced smile and nodded. I think it's not one of them. As he had only third sky of ethereal god realm, although he was arrogant and confident, he wasn't too haughty to not know how high the sky was. He knew that when he encountered the peak existence, he wouldn't be able to parry. He could be killed shortly after. It has been several thousand of years. Those two invincible characters had disappeared from Agate Star Area a long time ago. You don't need to be scared. Zhuo Lu pondered for a while and then said, talking with common sense, the two of them didn't have any grudge against our potion and tool pavilion. Even if that shield is related to them, it has been a long time. I suppose it's not enough to threaten our potion and tool pavilion. Pausing for a while, Zhuo Lu cautiously advised, I've notified Hammer. He will go with you this time. Experts from the Dark Shadow clan will also support us. You go there and get the cannon. About Fu Wei, if you can't kill her, Hammer will help you. Du Lin felt so painful. Looking at Zhuo Lu, can I confine her? You can, but you have to make sure that she doesn't disturb our business and that she doesn't escape your confinement. Zhuo Lu snorted. Your grandfather and I are good brothers. You will become the hope of the Croc family. You can replace Hammer to be the head of the Ghost Mark clan. Don't fail me again. Otherwise, I will choose another talent to inherit the Crocs. Du Lin stooped and nodded, but didn't answer. Go. Zhuo Lu waved his hand, his face cold. They are in Life Star number 9 of Potion and Tool Pavilion in Shadow, Ghostly Prison. Du Lin bent, backing off. Dash. In Life Star number 9 of Potion and Tool Pavilion in Shadow, Ghostly Prison. Jia Duo and Fu Wei were waiting by the lake. Uncle Duo, How is it going with the giant blood shield I told you to investigate last time? As it was boring to wait for someone, Fu Wei suddenly recalled something and asked. Jia Duo frowned, sighed, and then shook his head. The great elder keeps the heart eye. Recently, our relationship with them has turned so badly that it can't be restored. It's not easy to use the satellite eye to search for information, and since it's related to the great elder, it's much harder. Listening to him, Fu Wei was disappointed. Fu Wei, it has been many years since you've been in Potion and Tool Pavilion. Which expert do you have the best relationship with? Think carefully. Is it someone you know that had helped you out there? Jia Duo was also suspicious. He understood well many divine weapons of the entire Agate Star area. Although it was a vast star area, you could count the number of divine weapons on your fingers. He knew all of them. However, he had no impression of the blood shield Fu Wei had described. He was also inexplicably skeptical. I think not. Fu Wei thought for a while and then said, I have a good relationship with many experts. However, it's just the business-like type. I don't have a deep relationship with anyone. It's related to the internal war of our Potion and Tool Pavilion. I think not many people dare to interfere. Anyway, our party is weaker than others. If there's some expert, I'm not sure if he wants to support us. Jia Duo sighed, his face dispirited. The great elder does have powers. If you didn't have the cannon, we wouldn't have had a chance to compete for Pavilion Master position. I don't know why I always think that giant blood shield is related to Shi Yan. Fu Wei suddenly muttered. Jia Duo was bewildered. His face darkened, scolding. Did he poison you? What talent does he have? Only the original God realm cultivation base. How could he control such a divine weapon? Snorted, Jia Duo said unrestrainedly. At his realm, even if he could control the divine weapon, do you think he could parry Du Lin's strike? Who do you think Du Lin is? He's at third sky of ethereal god realm and he has the thunder god spear. Unless that won someone at a higher level, why would he retreat first? You're being silly. Fu Wei didn't oppose him or say anything, because even she felt that her thought was too absurd. However, she did have this intuition. It didn't come with any logic, but it was because Shi Yan had given her a mysterious and unpredictable feeling. He was like a thick mist that concealed a lot of secrets. She didn't tell Jia Duo that Shi Yan had used his life power Upanishad to refill her energy. She was afraid that Jia Duo would investigate her. However, Shi Yan's marvelous performance and the safe feeling she had when he placed his hand on her back was imprinted in her soul. At that most dangerous moment, the shield appeared. It gave her a familiar, safe feeling and it made her relaxed. It wasn't different from when Shi Yan gave her energy. A woman's intuition often has no logic and no evidence. However, with that safe feeling, she had linked it with Shi Yan as if she knew the truth. You and he are just duckweed and water. You two have nothing in common. Your life will be arranged properly. You can't act rashly. Jia Duo continued coldly. That brat is just a traveler whose path has crossed your path of life for a while. He has nothing that is different from Du Lin and the other boys. Don't linger. That's how you can reach the glory position of Pavilion Master. Fu Wei's bold brown arched. Her eyes were filled with complex emotions. To me, he and Du Lin are totally different. They have nothing in common. Chapter 1021, The First Generation. Chapter 1021, The First Generation, _ Shadow Ghostly Prison had many forces, but only one force was powerful enough to cope with the Dark Shadow Clan, the Fighting League. The Fighting League was formed by many forces of different races. Initially, it wasn't concentrated. When the Dark Shadow Clan arrived and began to invade everywhere, the scattering forces of the Fighting League became more solid. They started to compete with Dark Shadow Clan to control Shadow Ghostly Prison. Most of the time, the Fighting League had the upper hand. Even in the most fierce and bloody battles, they were the ones who stood and smiled at the end. The reason why they couldn't eliminate the Dark Shadow clan was because of that race's features. They could move like shadows, and the Fighting League hadn't been able to locate their headquarters yet. This race, which suddenly appeared in the shadow ghostly prison, was really mysterious. They didn't know where they came from or where they were hiding. After losing a battle, the Dark Shadow clan's troops could use the special damaged space of Shadow ghostly prison to retreat at ease with external wounds. The Fighting League had 6 big war departments, led by 6 experts. Each department had powerful forces. Today, Windstorm War Department of Fighting League suddenly visited Life, Star, Number 9 of Potion, and Tool Pavilion. The gigantic battleships hovered in the air like dark clouds, giving people a heavy pressure. The massive battleship leading this fleet had a flying bird shape. It was almost 5,000 meters long with the wings, as sharp as blades releasing cold light. By the late evening, a group of several hundred warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion was watching at the battleships anchored in the air, waiting in silence. Shortly after, Blue Phoenix bird war chariots detached from the leading battleships. Those war chariots had the form of the legendary phoenix-typed bird with magnificent, sleek, 5-colored feather. While they were flying, people could hear the magical melody that was like birds singing. Those blue bird war chariots were also fabricated by Potion and Tool Pavilion. It was one of the top-quality war chariots that Potion and Tool Pavilion had ever made. It was famous in Agate Star area for its lightning speed. The blue bird war chariots descended beautifully. The leading war chariot had a light pink crystal lotus throne where a distinctively beautiful woman sat. She was wearing a gorgeous long dress, whose hem was beautified with marvelous drawings and patterns. Her dress was flimsy and floaty, like light flowing. Her black hair cascaded like a waterfall reaching her delicate waist. Her bare feet had 2 exquisite blue crystal anklets. The energy ripples from those anklets were wonderful and clear. She was sitting neatly on the rosy crystal lotus throne, looking like a flawless, blooming flower. Her bearings were elegant and indeed noble. Her pink, succulent lips had a cold smile. She descended from the sky like a goddess watching her creatures. Jaduo was solemn. He hurried to welcome her. His cold and sinister face squeezed an ugly smile. He raised his voice. Lady Xia Xanyan, you humble yourself by coming to our cottage. Thank you for beautifying our place. Welcome, welcome. Fu Wei lifted her head, looking at the lady slowly landing. Her bright eyes were wide open as she was attracted by the elegant and graceful bearing of Xia Xanyan. As they were all women, Fu Wei discreetly made a comparison and felt embarrassed. She began to admire that lady. Thank you, 10th Elder and 12th Elder, for your personal welcome. I'm too honored to receive your warm hospitality. Xia Xanyan smiled, revealing her white teeth, which were like the fulgent pearls and were very mesmerizing. The guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion lifted their heads to watch her elegantly come. They were so charmed by her beautiful posture, so they tried to hide their hot eyes. To the beauties, men always uncontrollable enthusiasm. As Xia Xanyan was a high-rank commander in Fighting League, of course, she drew a lot of attention, especially since she was with her outstanding men. Lady Xia came here personally. We must treat you well. It's our manners. Jaduo smiled. After the woman got off her bluebird war chariot, he jabbered. We've prepared a feast. We're all waiting for you. When he treated Shi Yan, he was cold and imperious. However, when he faced Xia Xanyan, he was gentle and kind. He had even smiled. His attitude was completely different. The reason for this difference was Xia Xanyan's position in Fighting League. She was the one who controlled the Windstorm, one of the war departments of Fighting League. She was one of the most powerful characters in Fighting League. Moreover, the Fighting League's hegemon favored her a lot. The Fighting League, whether in Shadow, Ghostly Prison, or in Agate Star area, was an intimidating force, which wasn't less influential than Monster Clan or Demon Clan. Then, I have to bother you guys. Xia Xianyan's porcelain face beamed a weak smile. She nodded, following Jia Duo and Fu Wei to the lake. The water in the center of the lake parted, revealing an exquisite path made of jewels. It was illuminated, leading to the center of Life Star number 9. The underground was a whole new world. The dome above their heads was inlaid with gemstones and jewels, making it look like the starry sea. Brilliant lights shone beautifully. Many several hundred-meter, white chalcedony pillars supported the dome and the massive subterranean palace. They were carved with beautiful and magical patterns. The main hall of the main palace was larger than 10 football stadiums with many strange and beautiful floras. Many small streams weaved with each other and meandered around the exquisite jade pavilions for the visitors to rest and watch the wonderful view. Inside those pavilions stood a table with sweet aroma from many precious fruits. This main hall was just a corner of this underground world. The other areas were arranged to fabricate battleships with piles of different materials. Hundreds of blacksmiths and alchemists were moving to and fro. They were so busy every day fabricating and refining tools, pellets, and armor for different forces around Agate Star area. Potion and Tool Pavilion had many life stars. This Life Star number 9 was a massive factory that refined pellets and forced treasures. It was under Jia Duo and Fu Wei's party. Inside the main hall, maids of different races were holding a tray filled with fruits, walking back and forth. Sitting on the main chair was a stout old woman. She smiled, squinted her eyes, and waved at Xia Xianyan. "Come sit here." Jia Duo and Fu Wei became a little cautious when they saw that granny. They slightly bowed to greet her and spoke in unison, Third Elder. Third Elder Bettina was a character at the founder level of Potion and Tool Pavilion. She wore a dark blue gown, her hair tied in an updo bun. She had a lot of delicate rings on her fingers, and she had no less than 100 small accessories on her body. Each of them had some special functions. Seeing the granny, Xia Xianyan was a little scared. She hurried to greet the old woman. "Greetings, Third Elder. How is your hegemon?" Bettina smiled and asked. As she was at the noble founder level of Potion and Tool Pavilion, she didn't come out there to welcome her. As she had spent her time while being so busy to meet Xia Xianyan here, it was enough to give her face. At her level, unless the hegemon of the Fighting League came, she wouldn't humble herself to greet people. "Our hegemon is cultivating in seclusion. He's doing well. Thank you for your concern," said Xia Xianyan solemnly. "Come and sit, dear. Your hegemon and I used to take a walk around this world. And you," Bettina didn't finish, waving her hand. "Jia Duo and Fu Wei stay here. The others should leave." People of Potion and Tool Pavilion got up and left, including the maids. This spacious hall now had only Bettina, Fu Wei, Jia Duo, and Xia Xianyan. Jia Duo and Fu Wei were confused, taking their seats in the table lower than the others. They looked at Bettina curiously. Bettina was several thousand years old. In Potion and Tool Pavilion, she wasn't the one who had the highest realm, but she was the oldest one. Even the great elders, while Lu was just her junior. In Potion and Tool Pavilion and Agate Star area, she was a legendary character. Ordinary people would never have a chance to meet her. Even an expert at incipient god realm could only possibly gain her favor. When Bettina heard of the canon, she came to Life Star number 9. With her position and age, she didn't need to meet Xia Xianyan. However, she insisted on it, which confused Jia Duo and Fu Wei. They didn't know why Bettina valued Xia Xianyan that much. Sigh, it has been several thousand years. Time flies fast. After the irrelevant people had all left, Bettina sighed and asked, "Do you remember me?" Fu Wei and Jia Duo were baffled. They looked so shocked, as they didn't know why she had that question. Has she known Xia Xianyan before? The two of them were bewildered, as they thought that it was too absurd. Bettina had lived several thousand years. How could she know a little girl who has just arrived in Shadow, ghostly prison, less than 100 years? Was there anything more shocking than this? While Fu Wei and Jia Duo were perplexed, Xia Xianyan bit her lower lips, her face so strange. After a while, she nodded and pointed at her head. She was the first generation. And you vowed to be sisters. I don't know what I should address you as. The granny smiled and said trickily, "If you want to count that as sisterhood, should I call you Little Mei Mei?" Mei Mei! Bettina looked dazzled, as if she had fallen into a deep place of her memory. She muttered, "It has been so many years. You were so talented that year. You had the strangest time power Upanishad. Your soul has been reincarnated 7 times. You've lived in different star areas. You've used reincarnation to understand time power Upanishad, but it has been 7 lives. Are you still you of that year?" Fu Wei and Jia Duo were baffled, sitting idly as they couldn't believe what they had just heard. They looked at Xia Xianyan with deep fear in their eyes. "You want to hear the truth?" Xia Xianyan frowned. Bettina contemplated for a while and then nodded gently. "I know the truth hurts, but yeah, tell me." "I'm Xia Xianyan. I'm not here. What you left me are the inheritance of time power Upanishad and her memory of 7 lives. Nothing else. In other words, she has gone and vanished in the long river of time. She made mistakes in her cultivation," said Xia Xianyan. Bettina forced a smile, sighing. "I knew it would turn out that way. That year, your brother and her brother had advised her not to act rashly, but she was stubborn, and she had ended in such a way." Pausing for a while, Bettina continued, "Since he has intentionally assigned you to manage the windstorm and facilitated you to deal with the business of Fighting League, I know your secret. If you weren't his blood sister, with his characters, how could he treat a stranger so well like that?" The man Bettina referred to was the current hegemon of the Fighting League, also the older brother of the woman who had Xia Xianyan as one of her reincarnations. Feng Han. Chapter 1022. Caning the Passionate Couple? Chapter 1022. Caning the Passionate Couple. _ This place. Standing on the asteroid, Shi Yin pointed while talking deliberately. Fei Lan, Leona, and the others were surprised. Looking at a pitch-black area in front of them, they were baffled before releasing the soul consciousness to sense. However, they couldn't detect any life energy fluctuation. The cotton clouds over there were like ink, shading the entire area. In their eyes, it was an opaque area with no living being or any soul-form creature. If Shi Yin didn't have some special abilities, they would think that he was talking nonsense. However, none of them felt like that, as they were looking at Shi Yin while waiting for his next explanation. "The potion and tool pavilion is really powerful," Shi Yin complimented. "They can conceal the entire life star. You guys can't sense anything from that place. This unique force of the agate star area is really mysterious indeed. There are many methods to cover the life star. It's not something really awesome. As far as I know, there are at least 30 methods to hide all the living signals of a life star." Benny frowned while talking arrogantly. "We have many similar solutions in our dark, exterminating star area. That year, we also used the thick, gray mist of outer space to cover our main life star, such that soul consciousness couldn't detect it. So, this method isn't something really profound." While listening to him, people had their eyes brightened with surprise. "So, do you know how to resolve it?" Ka Tua grinned evilly. "My realm and power aren't enough to do that." Benny shook his head. "If I can reach the second sky of ethereal God realm, I can directly break that obstacle to expose the Life Star. Benny cultivated the destruction power Upanishad. Although he was young, his heart for killing was too heavy. Towards any problem, his solution was always brutal and straightforward. He just needed to smash or break to clean it up. Fortunately, this kid's realm wasn't high, or else he would become the malignant tumor of this universe. His desire of extreme devastation resided deep in his bones. If he didn't like it, the first thing he would have in his head would be to break it to not feel so irritated. I'm sure there are guards inside the barrier. We just need to cause some commotion. They will get out to stop us. Shiryan chuckled, touching his forehead. The starlight began to twirl around his body, then lined up and attacked the clouds in front of him. Boom! The clouds sent back dazzling sparks. It suddenly shrank like a rubber ball that was hit hard. It had a clear concave spot on it now. Someone will come out to check us. Shiryan smiled, waiting. Indeed, after 3 breaths, a war chariot hissed along its way, piercing through the cloud and flying towards them. The 3 warriors of the potion and tool pavilion emerged with dark faces. They gawked, looking at Shiryan's group. The team leader was shouting angrily, but then asked in surprise, "You guys did that?" He had met those people on Fu Wei's battleship. Seeing the troublemakers were someone he knew, he relaxed, giving a forced smile. "What do you want?" "Please notify your leader. We want to meet Elder Fu Wei. I have some important issues to discuss with her." Shiryan smiled while apologizing. "Since you use a special method to conceal the Life Star, I have to use such a begrudging method. Please forgive me." However, those guards under Fu Wei's party had a good impression of Shiryan's team. When Fu Wei had fallen into the perilous situation, Shiryan's team didn't leave but chose to fight with them side by side. They had given Fu Wei's guards a good impression indeed. The patrol leader frowned, talking with difficulty. "This Life Star number 9 doesn't belong to young Elder. Today we have some distinguished guests, so I can't allow you to get in. You help us to notify them. I'll see if Fu Wei wants to meet me or not." Pondering for a while, Shiryan added with a solemn face, "It's related to the internal competition of your potion and tool pavilion. It's really critical. Or else, I wouldn't actually want to meet your elder Jaduo." The patrol leader was a little baffled. "Is it really critical?" Shiryan nodded heavily. "In a much more important way, it's related to the future of the entire Agate Star area." The man changed his visage instantly, talking hurriedly. "All right, I'm going to tell them now. Please wait here." Then they drove the war chariot and returned into the dark cotton clouds with a flash, then disappeared. Main hall, Life Star number 9. Bettina and Xia Xian Yen were talking happily. Jaduo and Fu Wei didn't intervene, just listening to them. Jaduo and Fu Wei were astounded, as they often studied Xia Xian Yen with shock. No matter how hard they guessed, they couldn't imagine something incredible like that happened to Xia Xian Yen. She had the time power Upanishad. Her soul had reincarnated 7 times, and she still had the memory of her previous lives. In her first life, she had vowed the sisterhood with Bettina, the founder-level elder of the potion and tool pavilion. Such information was much beyond their understanding, shocking them too much. "When I knew you would visit us, I departed from another area to see you here." Bettina was touched. "It's been so many years, you know. I'm senile now and can barely walk. And you're still shining. From this aspect, I think, perhaps you are right." "No, not me. It's her." Xia Xian Yen corrected her, talking reluctantly. "You and our hegemon are the same. You guys always consider me her instinctively. Unfortunately, I'm not here. I hope you could see this." "I understand." Bettina smiled miserably. "But you guys have the same bearing. Although the minds are different, your powers Upanishads are the same. From some other aspects, I would instinctively think you're her." Jia Duo and Fu Wei sat quietly without interrupting. Suddenly, Fu Wei's sleeve sounded with a double clink. She furrowed, twitching her fingers. She connected her soul connection to listen to the report from the guards outside. Several seconds later, Fu Wei got up, giving an apologetic smile to Bettina, Jia Duo, and Xia Xinyan while talking. A friend comes to see me. I'm going to meet him. Bettina waved her hand as her focus was laying on Xia Xinyan, not mind the other much. Little Wei, you can go. I will chat with Xinyan for a while. You don't need to wait for us. Jia Duo darkened his face, his eyes cold while looking at Fu Wei as he lowered his voice. Is it that brat? He could see a happy gleam on Fu Wei's face. With his understanding of her characteristics, Fu Wei wouldn't be so friendly with other people with her calm nature. Only when she was with that brat would she show some feminine emotions. Thus, he could guess it correctly. Being asked, Fu Wei became unnatural. Jia Duo got more certain, talking heavily with a dark complexion. Not allowed. Jia Duo pitched his voice, which disturbed Bettina and Xia Xinyan. Bettina had a lot of wrinkles on her face like mountain ranges. She couldn't hold it, but knitted her brows while talking unhappily. Little Duo, although Little Wei is younger than you, she's an elder of the Potion and Tool Pavilion. Her position isn't lower than yours. Why did you talk to her like that? And you don't have the right to interfere with her personal business. Don't be wanton. Hearing Bettina, Jia Duo hastily got up, then bowed and said, It's not that I want to control her. It's, I want better things for Fu Wei. She has a friend in Demon Blood Star. They have something ambiguous. I'm worried that she would let her relationship affect her cultivation. You also know that she's our hope. If she falls in love, it's hard to win the Pavilion Master Potion at this critical moment. Bettina was surprised. Her countenance became more severe as she cried, Little Wei, is it true? Don't listen to Uncle Duo. We're just friends. He used to help me, and his relationship with the leaders of the Demon Blood Star and Monster Dragon Star isn't shallow. I'm also working for the common benefits of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Fu Wei bit her lower lip while talking. However, she stooped, not daring to look at Bettina in her eyes. You see her face? Does that mean there is nothing special in that friendship? Jia Duo snorted. They drank the 7 emotions and 6 desires liquor. Well, if a man and a woman drinking this liquor together in a closed room, even if they don't have anything, they will have something. I think their relationship isn't shallow. Because of the canon, I had to use this bad plan. Do you think I liked it? Fu Wei was also infuriated. If you hadn't forced me to verify the information of the canon, why would I have to humiliate myself that way? You guys drank the passionate liquor together. Bettina was stern, looking at Fu Wei while hissing. Little Wei, bring that kid here. I want to meet him. Fu Wei was bewildered, begging, We don't need to do that, right? I'm just going to talk to him to see what he wants to tell me. You don't need to interrogate him personally, do you? You don't listen to me now. Bettina frowned. Is it true that you don't respect us elderly after your teacher passed away? No, I don't. Bring him in. I want to see him. Understood. Fu Wei was reluctant, replying her in a muffled voice as she left. She was so begrudging. Oh, you guys became the passionate couple. Xia Xinyan smiled, but her eyes didn't as she said oddly, interfering in personal affair and messing up her real affection. It's not what you seniors should do, right? Jia Duo parted his lips, but he didn't dare to oppose. Bettina was surprised, smiling. You little girl, why do you think we want to harm her? We just want the best for her. Many people have yearned for the Pavilion Master position. If I weren't too old, I would try my best to get it. Little Wei has a big chance to get the position. This time, she had a huge lucky chance to get the canon. She now gets half the chance to sit on that Pavilion Master chair. If she messes up because of her love life, She will regret it for the rest of her life. We won't harm her. We are considering the best for her. Xiao Yen denied voicing her opinion again. She smiled but didn't talk. It was the potion and tool pavilion's matter after all. Even if she didn't like it, she wouldn't interfere. It was the rule and she knew it well. After that, they didn't talk more about this. While waiting for Shi Yen, they chatted a little more. Chapter 10:23. You look like my lady who has been missing for years. Chapter 10:23. You look like my lady who has been missing for years. Underscore. A corner of the crystal-clear lake. Fu Wei stood upright, wearing sky-blue clothes. Her porcelain wrist wore a fresh, green ring. She looked like a blooming lotus, pure and beautiful. A war chariot landed like a tornado. People on that chariot slowly got out, stepping on the stone ground in front of her. Shi Yen led them, beaming a bright smile as he bent to greet her. "Hello, lady!" Fu Wei relaxed her face, smiling discreetly and tenderly. "I heard you have something important to tell me." Shi Yen nodded and said earnestly, "It's critical. Otherwise, I wouldn't come to disturb your peaceful and quiet time." "Critical." Fu Wei gently looked at Zhua Shi, Xianming, and the others. She smiled and said, "If it weren't because of you, I wouldn't have overcome Du Lin's challenge. I hadn't thanked you properly before Uncle Duo barged in. He misunderstood you. I want to say sorry on behalf of him." Waving his hand, Shi Yen seemed not bothered with it. "It has nothing to do with him. I don't mind if he misunderstood me or not. About Du Lin, I didn't have any merit. It's you who is strong enough. Not you." Fu Wei smiled with some deep intention in her eyes. "Wasn't the giant blood shield that had appeared all of a sudden related to you?" "No, we aren't related." Shi Yen shook his head resolutely. Fu Wei giggled, looking at him in the eye. "We won't talk about it more. An elder wants to see you. She holds an extremely high position in the pavilion. She has treated me well. However, she's afraid that I would have a deep relationship with you. You should consider that." Shi Yen was surprised. He stayed baffled for a while before talking. "It's good. It's better if I talk to your senior about what I want to tell you. Follow me." Fu Wei stood up, gently flying towards the center of the lake. "You will go there alone," a guard told him by the lake while frowning. "You guys wait for me here." Shi Yen also knew the rules. He advised Fei Lan and the others, then followed Fu Wei, flying towards the main hall in the lake. The main hall. While discussing with Bettina, Xia Yen suddenly felt a vehement vibe in her soul. She could feel something very important to her was coming close. She felt a little restless. As her realm was profound and her power Upanishad was marvelous, she had many mysterious abilities. She calmed down her mind and sensed, but couldn't get anything strange. Squeak! A stone door above their heads squeaked open, as two figures slowly descended. Xia Yan's beautiful eyes suddenly sparkled with brilliant, dazzling light while her body shivered. She was bewildered, looking at the incoming man. She sat perplexed, as if she was struck by the body-fixing spell. After Shi Yen landed, he stooped and raked his eyes through the place. He was petrified as if he were walloped, his face astounded. It had been almost 100 years. The two intimate souls who had found each other in the Grace mainland suddenly met up again in this place. The two of them were dumbstruck, as they didn't expect this encounter. "Little Wei, is he the boy you told me about? He has a deep relationship with blood demon Bath and Gute?" Bettina hadn't recognized the strange expression on Xia Yen sitting next to her yet. She eyed Shi Yen while frowning. Only at the third sky of original God realm. Not really outstanding. Her line of sight switched from Jia Duo to Shi Yen, who looked really dumb at this moment, frowning tightly. Such a fool. Bettina relaxed. After she had seen Shi Yen, she felt quite disappointed. However, She also felt lucky that Fu Wei wouldn't have anything with Shi Yan. How could Fu Wei lay her eyes on a stupid kid like him? She instinctively thought that Jia Duo was wrong. Jia Duo was also confused as he looked at Shi Yan for a while and became disappointed. Sure, Yan didn't have a high realm and his manner wasn't excellent. He didn't even know that he should greet Bettina. Apparently, he made people disdain him. This is my senior, the third elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion. Shi Yan? Shi Yan. Fu Wei knitted her bold brows as she secretly called him, but he hadn't awakened yet. At this point, she had to raise her voice. Shi Yan sat down dully, facing Xia Xen Yan across the stone table. He was so astounded that he didn't hear what Fu Wei was saying to him, and he didn't greet Bettina and Jia Duo either. He acted incredibly dumb. The woman sitting in front of him was much more elegant than in the past. Her gorgeous gown lingered on her perfect figure. Her S*XY body was so charming, her bare feet seemingly made of porcelain and flawless. Today, her stylish and enchanting characteristics could make people's hearts pound harder. Shi Yan's line of sight fell on Xia Xen Yan and turned him as dumb as someone who had seen the glamour for the first time. He couldn't even hide his hot eyes gazing on her. Bettina, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei hadn't noticed Xia Xen Yan's strange expression as they were all watching Shi Yan. Seeing his confused complexion, Bettina and Jia Duo disdained him even more. Fu Wei was angry discreetly. She bit her lips, rolling her eyes at him. Seeing the glamour, he became dizzy and forgot even the basic etiquette. This made Fu Wei mad, thinking he was like the other men who were thrilled by Xia Xen Yan's beauty. Cough! Xia Xen Yan gave a dry cough as her face turned normal again. She smiled, then said naturally, Fu Wei Jiejie, why don't you introduce this outstanding, handsome young man here? He looks like he wants to eat human flesh. Is he the one who has a reluctant relationship with you? Fu Wei was so embarrassed as she glared at Shi Yan, trying to explain. No, we're just friends. Don't make wrong assumptions, guys. Normal friends. Xia Xen Yan smiled, but she didn't part her lips. Her beautiful eyes rolled, but she still gazed at Shi Yan. He looks good, but handsome warriors are everywhere in Agate Star area. He just looks so bearing. Only that much. He seems foolish, though. I think that Fu Wei Jiejie doesn't like him, right? She was talking to Fu Wei, but her line of sight had never left Shi Yan. Her voice sounded mocking, but no one knew that she was shivering. Sure, Yan pulled himself together from the awkward situation. He secretly glared at Xia Xen Yan, then gave a light cough and gathered his manner. Yeah, I'm a fool. But I'm not like someone who is trying to pretend to be foolish. Pausing for a while, his eyes became dissolute, raking on Xia Xen Yan's sexy body and not wanting to get back. He tried to look despicable. May I know your name, lady? Have you been married? What do you think about me? I don't know why when I see you, I thought that you were my lady who had been missing for years. I wonder if you have the same feeling. Listening to him, Bettina, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei were frightened, looking at him as if they were looking at a monster. This man, was he nuts? What position and level did Xia Xen Yan have? She was the leader of the Windstorm War Department of Fighting League. She was very famous in Shadow, Ghostly Prison. She was extremely brilliant, and her plans had never failed. She had taken her force to attack the Dark Shadow clan several times with brutal and extreme deeds. She was famous throughout 100 years in the Shadow, Ghostly Prison, the best of the best. Even Jia Duo and Fu Wei had to welcome her personally. This kind of character, how could he tease her that way? Fu Wei was panic-stricken, her face pale. She hurried to get up and explained to Xia Xen Yan reluctantly. This friend of mine is drunk, acting strangely. My apology. Please don't hold grudges against him. She turned around, then lowered her voice and scolded him. Shi Yan, what's wrong with you? Do you know who she is? She's the commander of the Windstorm War Department of Fighting League. She's the person the hegemon trusts the most. She can even talk on behalf of the Fighting League. I'm begging you, don't act rashly. Bettina and Jia Duo were pale, looking at him maliciously. However, it was beyond their expectation that Xia Xanyan, who was flirted with, hadn't been enraged yet. Quite the contrary. She somehow blushed and threw Shuryen a glance, talking casually. So, you want to pursue me? Of course, I'm not married. But it's not easy to chase me. I have someone I like. He's an A** shoal who enjoys his life out there. He has a lot of love affairs. It has been 100 years, and he hasn't found me yet. If you want to pursue me, help me kill him first. Can you do that? Everybody was bewildered, their faces odd. That kid is crazy. But is craziness infectious? Even a noble like her turned crazy? Since when did she like to give her good face to a man, especially when that man had teased her first? The master of Windstorm was infamous. Since when had she become so easy to talk with? She still spoke to that man nicely. What King logic was this? Bettina, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei all felt panic-stricken. They looked at Xia Xanyan, then Shuryen with his naked line of sight. They found the situation was way beyond their imagination. All right, tell me, what's his name? Tell me, and I'll kill him. Shuryen rolled his sleeves, his face savage, while shouting. Dares to let such a beauty wait for him for 100 years. He's committed a big crime. I'll kill him, then we'll be together. How does it sound? PFFF. Xia Xanyan burst out laughing charmingly. She angrily stared at him, then lowered her voice and scolded him. You don't care about your reputation. Shuryen laughed with his thick-skinned face. Bettina, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei were baffled. They exchanged looks, but they didn't know what to do. Lady, can we talk in private? Let me show my hot affection to you. Seeing you today, I'm amazed as if I've seen a fairy. If I can't have something with you, I will regret it my whole life. Please fulfill my wish. Shuryen seized the chance, grinning with bright eyes. Bettina's group was bewildered. They cursed Shuryen under their breath for being despicable. He was really wanton this time indeed. Excellent. Beyond their expectation, Xia Xanyan agreed resolutely. She smiled like a flower, talking to Bettina. Can I borrow a secret room? Bettina nodded bewilderedly. She felt so tired and unnatural. She called in a feeble voice, People, guide them to the secret chamber number 3. Under the fierce gaze of Jia Duo and Fu Wei, as if they wanted to eat people alive, Xia Xanyan jolted up from her seat fast. She looked even more hurried than Shuryen as she hastened to leave to the secret chamber. Jia Duo and Fu Wei could see her nape blushing. It was the sign of her rushing affection. At this moment, Shuryen laughed, then lifted his face and followed her under the sharp looks of the other 3. Chapter 1024. A Kiss for 100 Years. Chapter 1024. A Kiss for 100 Years. _. What's the F***CK is going on? Inside the main hall, Jia Duo couldn't help but curse. He pulled the few hair left on his head, his face irritated. Fu Wei hadn't recovered from her fear. She looked strange, trying to pry. Is it possible that Xia Xanyan does like him? Impossible. Bettina and Jia Duo screamed at the same time. Fu Wei was surprised. Pondering for a while, she said, Rumors say that she has never given any man her approval. Isn't it true? Why did she act so awkwardly when she saw him? It must be because she was so infuriated. Bettina was surprised. She chuckled as she got something all of a sudden. She talked as if she knew the real situation. Yeah, it should be that way. I understand my friend. She never lets herself in a disadvantaged situation. She wanted to go to the secret chamber that hurriedly. She She wanted to separate from us to teach that brat a lesson. Yes, it's like that. I saw clearly that her neck reddened because she was so angry. I can tell she was indignant. Yeah, it must be like that. Duo agreed with her. That brat dared to tease her. His despicable eyes were so. With her position and status, of course, she wouldn't let him go easily. Duo looked like he enjoyed Yan's misfortune, coldly looking in the direction of the secret chamber. That brat is going to have a lesson this time. It should be a fight taking place now in the room. Wait and see. When he walks out of that door, he won't look nice anymore. Bettina smiled and nodded. That brat is stubborn. He dared to say things he shouldn't have. He deserves that. What did he say? You look like my lady who went missing for years. Moron. He's shameless indeed. Fu Wei, I believe you now. It's impossible that you would like something like him. We've wronged you. Duo was also embarrassed. Fu Wei, I was impulsive. If I had known him to be a person like that, I wouldn't have worried about you. Bettina and Duo relaxed. They seemed to have nothing to worry anymore, and just sat to eat some fruits. They smiled, waiting for Yan to come out of that door with a swollen face. Although Fu Wei was so confused and thought that Yan had some mental disorder, she didn't want to see Yan encounter bad things. She said worriedly, would Lady Xia mishit him? He has a good relationship with Devil Blood Star and Monster Dragon Star. If he encounters bad things in our potion and tool pavilion, don't you think you will need to give them a proper explanation? Don't worry. She knows how to behave. It won't turn so bad that we can't solve it. Bettina waved her hand, talking casually. It's good for him to learn a lesson. He will know how high the sky is. You guys should never underestimate him. I saw how Blood Devil treated him in the Devil Blood Star. He's the only fellow of Blood Devil's tribe. I think you know Blood Devil's characteristics. Fu Wei was still worried. Hearing her, Bettina and Duo were hesitant. Pondering for a while, Bettina frowned while talking. I'm going to sense their fight then. Thud! A low grumbling noise arose from the secret chamber. It sounded like a body impact. It was low, but it wasn't so fierce. Closing her eyes, Bettina sensed discreetly. She said, both of them are panting. They must be fighting now. However, it's under control. It shouldn't be a big deal. Don't worry. She won't take his life. I'm sure about this. She's not an impulsive warrior. Listening to her, Fu Wei was begrudging. She was still worried, but she said nothing. Inside the stone chamber, it was a battle as they guessed. However, the way they battled each other wasn't what they had ever imagined. Inside the 10-square-meter room, Yan and Xia were pressing against each other like a pair of twins with a conjoined body on the jade wall while kissing passionately. They hugged and rolled on the ground. Sometimes they were stopped by the wall and caused some grumbling noises. No, I brought him here. If he gets into trouble, I will blame myself. After Fu Wei had struggled in her mind for a while, she couldn't help but move to the door of the secret chamber despite Duo and Bettina trying to tell her to stop. She hissed at the door. Lady Xia, please show mercy. Although he spoke rudely, he didn't mean harm. Please, for the face of our potion and tool pavilion, don't hurt him so bad. Fu Wei stood by the door, gently knocking to catch the attention of people inside. In the secret chamber, Yan trembled on hearing Fu Wei's hissing. He cursed under his breath as he was annoyed. Yen smiled charmingly, lowering her voice. That woman cares about you a lot. She's afraid that I'm bullying you. What's the relationship between you guys? Nothing. Yen rose his hand. I'm perfectly clean. Shoal. You can't stay still wherever you go. If you don't mess with people, you can't feel comfortable, right? Yen glared, snorting. I've lost my mood today. I'm not going to satisfy you. Looking at Yan's eyes, which were about to be set ablaze, she gently stood up, gnawing her succulent red underlip. She lowered her voice and then said, "They're all outside. We can't enjoy that much. If I'm careless and let out a moan, my reputation will be destroyed." Her beautiful eyes were watery as her sexy body shivered. Evidently, she was trying to control her surging, passionate affection. Sure, Yen looked at her putting on her clothes and felt so irritated as he couldn't vent out his desire. He gave her a forced smile. I have nothing ambiguous with her, really. He knew she was jealous. Otherwise, she wouldn't have insulted him right when she saw him. At the critical moment, this noble lady ditched him, which was even more annoyed than killing him. He felt a cat paw gently scratching his heart. He felt dry and hot, and it was hard to bear. "I'm giving you a lesson for your flirty nature. We're done for today. Harumph. I can't reward you without any merit." Xia Xan Yen smiled gently, looking at his hurried gait like a monkey. Xia Xan Yen felt so comfortable. "They thought I was teaching you a lesson. It's interesting. I can see Bettina and Jia Duo hope that I would hit you hard until your face is swollen. You're a failure in their eyes, eh? And only Fu Wei cares about you. Your relationship with women is sure good. Tell me, how did you seduce her?" "No, I didn't. Really, I didn't." "Sure." Yen almost rose his hand to swear. "At first, we shouldn't reveal our relationship. The hegemon treats me as his blood sister. He's a bit overprotective. He watches me closely. If he knows of our relationship, he will be enraged badly." Xia Xan Yen grinned, teasing. "You haven't surpassed me yet. I've reached the second sky of ethereal god realm already. With your status and power, I think my hegemon won't agree. You should put in more effort. Don't lag behind me." Listening to her, Shi Yen was shocked, beaming a forced smile. "You've reached the ethereal god realm, and you still didn't have any significant bottleneck." "Yes," Xia Xan Yen giggled. "Thus, you have to put more efforts. 100 years ago, I told you to be stronger. When you are stronger than me, I'm willing to be your woman. You're still behind me, so I can only give you some different advantage. Then what should I do now?" Sherian put on a sad face, veins bulging on his head. "You want me to walk out of this room like this?" Xia Xan Yen was bewildered, blushing. Her beautiful watery eyes looked at his private place. Hesitating for a while, she muttered loud enough for the mosquitoes to hear, "I'm going to use my hand, then." After a long time, the stone door of the secret chamber squeaked open. Xia Xan Yen walked out with wrinkled clothes and locks of hair tangled over her temples. She lifted her head, walking out arrogantly, her countenance cold and her eyes disdainful. They had fought. Bettina and Jia Duo exchanged looks. From Xia Xan Yan's wrinkled clothes, they could confirm their assumption. Then, Shi Yen walked out of the room dispiritedly. He clutched his stomach as if he were hurt, which strengthened the other's assumption. They now believed that Shi Yen learned his lesson in that chamber already. Otherwise, his footstep wouldn't be that light. "Are you all right? Did you get hurt?" Fu Wei frowned, glancing at Xia Xan Yen in an unfriendly way. She walked over and reached out to support Shi Yen while nagging. "Why did you need to provoke her? You got your lesson. Will you behave now?" "I will. I will." Shi Yen nodded instinctively while answering her. "Shall we talk the business now?" Fu Wei gave a light snort. "Yeah, we should." Shi Yen chuckled, restoring his deliberating manner. However, he often glanced at Xia Xan Yen. "He's so bold in this flirting thing. He doesn't even want his life." Fu Wei goggled, cursing under her breath. She was so bitter she wanted to vent her anger out. However, she couldn't find anything to do that, and began to feel distressed. Chapter 10:25. Play to the gallery? Chapter 10:25. Play to the gallery. __. The Great Elder has joined hands with the Dark Shadow Clan to facilitate the God Clan's invasion. Bettina gave a faint smile. With her prejudice toward Shi Yan, she didn't have any favorable impression of him, so she didn't believe him. Nonsense. Although Great Elder has a big wild scheme, he knows what not to do. Letting the God Clan invade our place. What's good for him in this? He's willing to be the God Clan's hound? Bettina shook her head, not believing Shi Yan at all. Jia Duo and Fu Wei were also surprised, but they thought Shi Yan was just acting. Fu Wei felt that Shi Yan's today performance was too bad. She assumed he was playing the gallery to earn their attention. Thus, she didn't buy it. Do you know the superpower status of Potion and Tool Pavilion in Agate Star area? Jia Duo wasn't polite, grinning. Being the Great Elder of the Potion and Tool Pavilion, he has almost controlled all of the star area. He's the peak character who tops everyone else. Unless his brain's dysfunctional, he would never become the servant of the God Clan. Your joke's funny. Fu Wei kept silent and didn't help Shi Yan defend himself either. The three elders of the Potion and Tool Pavilion used their words and complexion to express their attitude. Shi Yan had gone through all the trouble to get to this place, bringing them the news. He was so angry at their response. He understood that it was because the Potion and Tool Pavilion didn't consider his status or position. If Xia Xianyan, Blood Devil of the Demon Clan, or Bath and Gu Te from Monster Dragon Star had told them this information, the three elders of the Potion and Tool Pavilion would have jumped in fear. When one didn't have status or a high position, people would consider the truth one spoke as a big joke. No one would care. I got the information from the memory of an ethereal God realm expert of the Dark Shadow Clan. It must be true. Shi Yan said resolutely. Unfortunately, hearing him, Bettina and Jia Duo hated him even more as they felt it seemed so stupid. Especially Jia Duo, who talked with a mocking face. You're just a warrior at the original God realm. What do you have to kill an ethereal God realm expert and extract his memory? Even if you want to lie, you need to find more backup. Bettina waved her hand as she couldn't hold it. All right. If you only have this to say, we're not interested. Yeah, you should go. Don't delay our important business. She nodded to Fu Wei, asking her to send him off. Fu Wei sighed, standing up reluctantly. She lowered her voice, talking to Shi Yan. Let's go. I'm taking you out. Shi Yan knitted his brows tightly, his face grimaced. He stood up quietly, turning around to throw Xia Xianyan a glance. Xia Xianyan nodded, but no one noticed her move. She signaled for him to wait for her outside the life, star number 9. Fu Wei led Shi Yan flying out of the lake. When they landed, she frowned, blaming him. What's wrong with you today? Shi Yan darkened his face, talking coldly. You don't believe me. Naturally, I would believe you, but you're so strange today. I think you got crazy because of Xia Xianyan's glamour. I can't make myself believe in you. Fu Wei said seriously. Shi Yan felt lost. He sighed inwardly, but he didn't want to insist on it anymore. It's okay if you don't believe me. When it happens, I hope you can manage things well. Sai, could you tell me what's happened to you? Fu Wei was bewildered, her face awkward. Why did you seem to have become another man when you saw Xia Xianyan? You were like a loon pervert who doesn't know a thing. You were obsessed. Is she that attractive to you that she could even disorder your mind? Fu Wei still thought that Xia Xianyan was the main reason why Shi Yan behaved like a fool, and that he had made up such terrifying, fake news to attract her attention. Shi Yan wanted to cry, but had no tears. He didn't have the mood to explain, so he just waved his hand. I'm leaving now. You guys suit yourself. I hope you wouldn't regret in the future. I'm glad you came to see me. Fu Wei pondered for a while and then said, How about you staying here and waiting for me for a while? After we've done negotiating with Xia Xianyan, I'm going to talk to you later? No need. I don't have free time. Shi Yan rejected with a dark dace. He felt irritated leaving. He talked to Fei Lan's team waiting in the distance. Let's go. Fei Lan and Leona nodded. They didn't look at Fu Wei, following him to fly out of the lake. They pierced through the atmosphere, returning to the dark outer space. Underneath them were the dark clouds that covered the entire life star number 9, revealing nothing. Shi Yan's team gathered on a dark blue asteroid and stopped to watch. Senior, has the potion and tool pavilion fallen into chaos now? Ka Tuo approached him. The God clan is about to invade, and their great elder has joined hands with aliens. Isn't it breaking news? They didn't believe me. They thought I was making it up. Damn it. Shi Yan couldn't help but curse. Fei Lan's team was baffled. Benny's handsome face was angry and ferocious. Seems like they don't want to live anymore. The God clan is famous for their intimidation in this universe. The star area they lay their eyes on can't avoid a catastrophe. They got the chance to prepare their defense, but they refuse it. I think the agate star area will become the backyard garden of the God clan soon. He came from another star area and knew how mighty the God clan was. Seeing the strongest force of agate star area being so aloof and numb, he was quite disappointed. What should we do now? Fei Lan frowned. The potion and tool pavilion doesn't believe us. Who else we can tell to spread this information? How about Blood Devil? Too far. I can't contact him. It takes a lot of time to get here. Pondering for a while, Shi Yan said, We're going to wait here for a while. I want to see someone. Perhaps she could change the potion and tool pavilion's attitude. Who? Fu Wei Jiejie? Zhuo couldn't help but ask. Shaking his head, Shi Yan calmed down his anger and chuckled. Not Fu Wei. You'll know when you see her. Oh, do I know her? Zhuo sure screamed with surprise. Shi Yan smiled but didn't explain more. Hundreds of different shapes battleships entered a quiet corner of the shadow ghostly prison, without releasing any beam of fierce energy. Those battleships separated into two different parties as they moved in two formations, heading to the life star number 9 of Potion and Tool Pavilion. At the point where two formations crossed each other, there were two battleships, one belonging to the Ghostmark clan and the other to the Dark Shadow clan. The Ghostmark battleships were shark-shaped, around several thousand meters long. They looked more imposing than the flat, round battleships of the Dark Shadow clan. This kind of a battleship didn't belong in the Agate Star area, and they weren't fabricated by the Potion and Tool Pavilion. At this moment, people from two clans gathered between the two battleships. One of them was Du Lin. There was a dark shadow old man with a face that had experienced hardship and difficulties. He had thin and long eyebrows that looked like two spears. He was around 60 or 70 years old, wearing a strange robe with gold-plated hems shrouding his entire body. Also present was a Ghostmark man with a cold and harsh countenance. His face was arrogant as he stood, clasping his hands behind his back. The three of them were discussing something. At times, a murderous aura would arise from them. Apparently, they were plotting something bloody. Suddenly, a Dark Shadow clan soldier flew to them from a battleship, talking respectfully. Master Cocker, the kid we were searching for, disappeared. The troop we sent to find him was killed. The leader of the Dark Shadow clan, called Cocker, had a brutal light sparkling in his eyes. No one alive. Yes, they were all killed. The subordinate replied gingerly. Cocker waved his hand. I got it. You can leave. The Dark Shadow clan clansmen retreated quietly. Do you need help? Hammer, the current chief of Ghostmark clan in Agate Star area, sounded surprised. If someone dares to kill your fellows in Shadow Ghostly Prison, it's only the Fighting League. The Fighting League and the other have a good relationship. I heard that the commander of the Windstorm War Department is visiting the Life Star number 9. If you don't feel well, it's a good chance to vent out. We will solve our own business. You don't need to mind a thing, Cocker said while frowning. The target life star has the 10th elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, who cultivates space power Upanishad. Before we attack them, we need to prepare something first. Hammer and Du Lin nodded. They knew the abilities of the warriors cultivating space power Upanishad. To deal with this kind of warrior, they needed a complicated arrangement. Or else, their target could use his power to retreat with ease. The warriors who cultivated space power were the hardest to catch in every known star area. If they didn't block all of his possible exits, they wouldn't be able to kill him. Leave it to the Dark Shadow Clan. Cocker looked at Hammer and Du Lin while explaining. Our Dark Shadow Clan is good at chasing warriors with space power Upanishad. We just need to disorder the space nodes around, which will prevent him from using them to teleport. We can stop him that way from running away in just a blink. Hammer and Du Lin knew how strong the Dark Shadow Clan was in this particular field. They didn't have any other opinion and agreed with him. First, we need to stop the battleships so that I can break the space nodes around here. We will mess up all the areas where he could make a quick escape. We will stop him from escaping the Life Star instantly. After we're done, you can move, said Cocker arrogantly. Hammer and Du Lin agreed with him. Cocker called for someone, then lowered his voice to assign that man. The Dark Shadow Clan warrior listened to him and nodded continually. Shortly after, he left. Not long afterward, brilliant chunks of light bloomed in the dark space. The void rippled and twisted like water waves. Hammer and Du Lin had a feeling that this whole area was about to collapse. They looked at the exploding light, feeling the fear for the Dark Shadow Clan rising high in their hearts. This mysterious clan did have supernatural powers to deal with warriors with space power. At the same time, their internal power was also intimidating. Chapter 1026 Frantic. Chapter 1026 Frantic underscores her. Sitting on the dark blue asteroid, Shi Yan suddenly opened his eyes, his face pale. He had always been silent in cultivating, sending his soul consciousness to sense the magical features of the 16 space nodes around him. However, he had just sensed one of them become chaotic. It seemed some unknown force was breaking them unceasingly. His strange reaction woke up Fei Lan and the others as they looked at him in confusion. Sure, Yen didn't explain. He closed his eyes and continued sensing the other space nodes of the Life Star number 9 under Potion and Tool Pavilion. After less than 10 minutes, 5 space nodes were distorted by an appalling force. They couldn't function as teleporting ports anymore. He paled while thoughts flashed through his head like electric beams. In a flash, he jolted up with fear, talking anxiously. There's 16 space nodes around this area. Someone is breaking them continually. Evidently, a powerful force is going to attack that Life Star. As they can break the space nodes, they should have an intimidating force. This action aims at Jia Duo. They know Jia Duo's here. Ka Tua was surprised, but then he felt happy on the others' misfortune. They deserve that. The Potion and Tool Pavilion have bad luck this time. Fei Lan and the others also had an indifferent visage. They didn't care about the Potion and Tool Pavilion, especially that foul-mouthed Jia Duo. As the Potion and Tool Pavilion didn't believe Shi Yan, they didn't have any good feelings for that force. They even wished a big loss for them. If they don't care about us, should we leave now? We shouldn't get involved in this mess, said Katua. Shi Yan frowned with a stern look. He pondered and then said, I'm going to deliver you guys through a space node that still functions. Shortly, he gathered his energy as space slits moved around him like electric beams. Gradually, those electric space beams twisted with each other, creating a mysterious space channel above their heads. Get in there, all of you, Shi Yan hissed. Fei Lan and the others didn't understand his actions. They all looked at him bewilderedly. After you get out of the passage, navigate a direction and move far away, as fast as possible. Don't rest. Shi Yan's face was stern like never before. Leave this area quickly. Stay on a mineral star or a life star. Do not return at any cost. The force that could break the space nodes and attack the potion and Tool Pavilion's life, star number 9, should have formidable power. He understood that the potion and Tool Pavilion would encounter a danger they had never seen before. With one wrong step, their situation would change dramatically. Even Shi Yan wasn't sure if he could survive this furious battle. However, he had to get back there. It was not because of the potion and Tool Pavilion. It was because Xia Xian Yan was still down there. "Senior, if you want to go, we'll go together," shouted Katua. "I have to go. There's someone I can't leave behind. I have to get back there." Shi Yan barked. "Then we will return together." Fei Lan hissed. Her face showed that she wouldn't accept a no. "You can't be of help there. I don't want you to die in vain. The opponent is extremely intimidating this time, stronger than you can ever imagine. If they dare to plot against the 3 elders of the potion and Tool Pavilion, of course they're prepared. Our force can't do anything." Shi Yan took a deep breath, talking. "You guys don't worry too much. I've been struggling in the most dangerous area for almost all my life. If I go alone, I will have 70% chance of surviving. If you follow me, I will have to worry a lot. It's no different from a burden." "Go together or stay together," said Leona. Shi Yan felt warm inside, but his face grimaced. He couldn't help but shout at them, touching his forehead. "I'm going to use my status as the heir of the master of Bloodthirsty's Cortege of 8 for the first time to order you guys to leave immediately. I don't have much time. If you waste a second, my chance to survive will reduce further." The space nodes were still disappearing. When all the space nodes here were destroyed, this area would be completely locked. At that time, the potion and Tool Pavilion wouldn't be able to connect with other places. Many sound stones and secret treasures used to communicate would need the space nodes to transfer the message. Once all the space nodes of this area were destroyed, this area would be completely blockaded. Then they would be confined and unable to send a message to get help. He knew what it meant. Although he had been together with Fei Lan, Leona, and Katua for many years, he hadn't used his status as the descendant of Bloodthirsty to order them into doing anything. If he still had a chance, he wouldn't do that this time. However, when he did that, it meant the situation had come to the most perilous moment. As told by Master, I don't dare to not follow. Benny was the first one to talk. This dark teenager made a strange hand gesture to greet him, then leaped up into the space channel. Fei Lan, Katua, and Leona reddened their faces as they were struggling in their minds. Eventually, they nodded, telling him to take care, and then pulled Xianming and Zuosher, leaping up to the passage. After that, they disappeared in a short while. Waiting until all of them had left, Shi Yan changed his power Upanishad. The space channel he had made shrank into a light dot and vanished. He didn't hurry to get into the potion and Tool Pavilion's life, star number 9. He took a deep breath, sending away 3 drops of his ruby blood together with a wisp of soul consciousness. The 3 drops gathered into a thread, moving into the endless sea of stars. It got into a space node near the Devil Blood Star. Within a second, it had traveled billions of miles away. At this most dangerous moment, he suddenly felt powerless, as if he didn't have any bit of energy left in his body. Besides Blood Devil, he didn't know whom to count on. He used to say that it was hard to contact Blood Devil, but that was the case when he didn't use immortal demon blood. If he tried the immortal demon blood to contact Blood Devil, he could send a wisp of his soul consciousness to him. However, since it was the first time Shi Yan tried this type of communication, he wasn't so sure when Blood Devil could receive his message. Using this communication method, he could send a limited amount of information. He could only tell the other the agate star area would have a great change originating from the shadow, ghostly prison. He also sent his location, saying that his life was threatened. He wasn't sure if Blood Devil would believe him and come to him or not. However, he must spread the news, because he knew that if he hadn't sent the information before the space nodes were all destroyed, he wouldn't have a single chance anymore. A blood thread with his soul consciousness had gone through the space nodes and traveled billions of miles in just a blink of an eye. Taking a deep breath, he didn't want to waste more time. He gathered his energy, blowing a punch of starlight on the black cotton cloud defense underneath. Shortly after, the Potion and Tool Pavilion's guard, who had taken them in and out previously, emerged with his face grimaced. He shouted, "Why are you still here?" Sure, Yen knew it was of no use to explain to him, as he wouldn't understand or believe him. He just smiled, talking. "I forgot my stuff down there. I just want to take it back. I won't trouble you. Please let me in for a while." The guard wasn't calm at all. The good impression he had for Sure Yen was fading as he frowned. "How long do you need?" "Short. I just need 15 minutes, Sure Yen hurried. He needed to enter this life star. He shouldn't waste time here, because the space nodes were still being destroyed. He didn't have much time left. Jaduo also had space power Upanishad. However, unless he was sensing the change of space nodes outside the life star, he wouldn't get the situation. At this moment, Jaduo was still discussing with Xia X and Yen, so he wasn't free to sense around. If he knew of the changes outside, he should have prepared already. However, as Sure Yen saw nothing changing in this life star, he knew Jaduo hadn't found anything. "You have 15 minutes. The guard told Sure Yen impatiently. He opened the barrier and let him in. However, as soon as he pierced through the atmosphere of the life star number 9, he madly drilled forward as if he were crazy. Star energy, God power, and negative energy burst out at the same time. He let them all flow, not wanting to store even a bit. He moved even faster than lightning. Shortly after, he fell into the lake at the center of the life star while shouting, "I want to meet your elders." As he was still screaming, he stormed to the center of the lake. His aura surged powerfully, which wasn't less than the exploding power of an ethereal god realm expert. The guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion, standing around the lake, saw only a lightning strike struck down, trying to pierce the lake. They all shouted and rushed to stop him. Most of them were at the original god realm, with many precious treasures and weapons. Instantaneously, lightning crossed the light, weaving above the lake to seal it. "Open the barrier and let me in." Sure Yen thundered angrily. "Wanton. Arrogant. You court death." The Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards cursed. They shouted the warning, soaring into the sky to stop him. Sure Yen was impatient this time, so he didn't have the mood to entangle with them. His eyes reddened. A blood light appeared as the giant broadsword emerged in his hand. The several thousand-meter blood light column moved like a garnet rainbow, slashing down and sending a sharp, brutal aura that could even open the sky. Puff! The light curtain dozens of guards at the original god realm were making was torn. Many of those guards spurted out blood as they were blown backward. More Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards came. They all looked terrified as they looked at him and started to shout, "He's crazy. He will trouble the elders. Stop him! Stop him!" In their eyes, Sure Yen with his red eyes was already crazy. They didn't notice what he was talking, and they just wanted to stabilize this chaotic situation. With the flame of anger that rose his murderous aura to the sky, Sure Yen had his negative energy burst out like a raging flood. The red eyes on the sword opened, and a flow of death aura filled the entire life star number 9. In this rushing situation, it was the first time he urged all of his power. Now he looked like the god of slaughter of the underworld. His sword tilted, slashing the second time. The thousands of meters, long blood, rainbow fell into the lake. Boom! The lake seethed violently as dozens of water column shot up into the sky. A terrifying energy hole appeared in the lake, sending billions of light dots backward. He had made up his mind. If he couldn't get into the main hall under the lake, he would force the people in there to come out. Chapter 10:27. Come with me. Chapter 10:27. Come with me. Underscore. Boom. Another several thousand meters, long blood, rainbow, violently hacked onto the lake. The massive energy cage in the lake collapsed, sending water columns into the air while billions of light dots bloomed. Many guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion were enraged. They cursed while dashing toward Shi Yan. Another space node was destroyed as Shi Yan wore a savage countenance. He was so indignant that his flame of anger could shoot into the sky. He was outraged because the Potion and Tool Pavilion didn't know anything, but was still so stubborn. He couldn't help but face the sky and roar. A flow of blood aura rocketed to the air like a massive blood dragon. The garnet eyes on the sword in his hand opened continually, diffusing the evil aura onto the entire surface of the life star. Swoosh! 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 The red eyes in the sword could feel his murderous aura. They flew out of the sword, turning into the images of ferocious demons. They had fangs and scary countenances, as well as pairs of wings on their backs. Their empty eyes let out bloodthirsty gleams like ferocious flaming balls. The blood-flaming ghosts moved like butterflies gliding above the lake as they gathered like blood-colored currents of a massive flood. Dozens of Potion and Tool Pavilion's warriors stormed toward Shi Yan when their soul altars were shaken all of a sudden. A strange pain stung their brain as the evil energy had invaded their sea of consciousness, causing an immense pain. The blood currents extended like long swords, moving continually. They weaved into a blood net, which was some kind of a barrier. Around that large blood barrier, the negative emotion including fear, bloodlust, despair, brutality, and madness, which often hid deep in the bottom of people's hearts, were all arisen. Warriors of the Potion and Tool Pavilion couldn't control their souls, as if they were under a malicious spell. For the time being, all the warriors attacking Shi Yan halted in the air. Their empty eyes looked exactly the same with those gliding, flaming ghosts. It was the signal when the soul was invaded. In the middle of the lake, the massive energy cage collapsed, stirring up water in the lake. The attacking energy rushed directly to the main hall. The main hall was shaken rumblingly as though it was about to shatter. Bettina, Jia Duo, Fu Wei, and Xia Xanyan were talking inside the hall when their visages changed dramatically. They recognized the pressure and couldn't help but look up. Jia Duo wore a cold face, extending his hand and touching the void in the dome above their heads. A small, open space appeared like a bright mirror. They immediately saw Shi Yan holding a massive sword, looking like a demon. At this moment, his murderous aura was shooting up into the sky. His eyes were both garnet, like 2 drops of blood. The energy in his body was chillingly evil, as though he wanted to imprison every creature in this world into the endless space of death. Holy sh**t. That kid's crazy. Jia Duo couldn't help but curse. He dares to make a move in our Potion and Tool Pavilion. He doesn't know how high the sky is. I'm going to kill him. Bettina also wore a cold face. Her anger toward Shi Yan had reached her bones as she said, coldly, "Dare to swagger in our Potion and Tool Pavilion? Even Blood Devil can't protect him this time." She apparently agreed with Jia Duo's decision. Fu Wei paled, looking at Shi Yan, who was crazy at this moment. She didn't know what to do in this situation. Her bright eyes were filled with worries. However, Xia Xanyan, who had just chatted happily with Bettina and Jia Duo, had her bold eyebrows knitted tight. She coldly glared at the other two and quietly flew up. She pierced through the barrier above their heads, getting out of the lake. A 1,000 meters long bloodlight column slashed down. It had aimed at the lake, but changed the direction in midway. Shortly, it rumblingly hit an empty battleship anchored by the lake. The 1,000 meters long battleship was like a loaf of tofu under the bloodlight. It was halved, with the cut surface as flat and smooth as a mirror. Xia Xianyan's beautiful eyes were confused as she hovered above the lake, calling him. "What's wrong?" "Come with me." Shi Yan, with his murderous aura, floated in the center of the blood net. He hurried to switch his powers Upanishads. The space slits appeared and gathered, creating a space tunnel above his head. He looked at Xia Xianyan and said, "I don't have extra time to explain. We should move first." Xia Xianyan was baffled. She hesitated for a second, but didn't say anything and just nodded. She was about to get into the space tunnel. Many potion and tool pavilions guards hovering around were dumbstruck. They didn't know why their distinguished guest listened to that madman. She didn't even clarify the situation before she decided to leave with Shi Yan. At that moment, Xia Xianyan wholeheartedly trusted Shi Yan. Shi Yan felt warm, as his surging, brutal mind gradually calmed down. However, an incident happened shortly after. When Xia Xianyan was about to get into the space tunnel created by Shi Yan's space power suddenly twisted and exploded. The sharp beams of space energy were shot out everywhere. Shi Yan's space tunnel was shattered in just a blink. Jiaduo's face was icy cold. He appeared by the tunnel all of a sudden. His eyes were dark and harsh. "You think you can come and leave our potion and tool pavilion's base that easily? A little warrior at original god realm, using space power to create the tunnel in front of me. You don't know how high the sky is, do you?" He used the same space power to crush the tunnel Shi Yan's had created. Xia Xianyan had to hover in the air. Shi Yan had just calmed his mood, but now was enraged again. And this time it was extreme. He burst out the negative energy in his entire body as if he were actually out of his mind. The sharp sword in his hand slashed the void as countless blood shadows expanded, surrounding Jiaduo. Sure, Yan suddenly felt another space node being smashed down. At this moment, the space nodes around this life star number 9 were completely dysfunctional. This also meant the other had completed blockading the life star, and Jiaduo had smashed Shi Yan's last chance to escape. It combusted his raging flame. The blood sword swayed in his hand, sending negative energy to fill up Jiaduo's soul area like a real sea. Jiaduo's cold face seemed confused. He frowned, as if he had to struggle in pain. Swish! A blood light drew in the sky with a marvelous trajectory and perfect curve. It seemed about to have Jiaduo's god body. Bettina and Fu Wei emerged from the lake. When they looked up, they saw the idol Jiaduo. The blood light would chop him off in the next second, causing them to pale in fright. They could never imagine Shi Yan had such power to take over Jiaduo's mind, make him discolor, and not have the ability to even parry. "Don't!" Xia Xianyan was also frightened as she hurried to make some hand seals. Her energy fluctuated magically as if it could stop time. The bloodlight column that was about to cut Jiaduo was slowed down strangely, and everybody else was also affected. They were slowed down as their time was controlled. Even Shi Yan wasn't an exception. He felt that the time moved so slow, while his surging energy reduced. Only Xia Xianyan wasn't affected. Her graceful body swayed and hurried to pull Jiaduo out of the danger zone. Swish! The bloodlight column resumed its real speed, striking down like lightning. However, Jiaduo had disappeared. The blood light fell on the lake and separated the water. The power of this slash was earth-shaking indeed. What happened? Xia Xianyan screamed. Her voice had something magical that woke up Shi Yan in his madness, as if he had a bucket of ice water pouring on his head. Warriors of the potion and tool pavilion gathered, surrounding him in layers. Bettina and Fu Wei were still frightened. They hadn't recovered yet, standing by Jia Duo. Jia Duo was still dizzy, struggling in his mind. Bettina had a bad grimace. She turned to glare at Fu Wei. "Is this the friend you say? You have to explain this to me." "Oh." Fu Wei's blue eyes were full of confusion. She stood baffled, not knowing what to say. "Kill him," Bettina ordered, her voice cold. Warriors of potion and tool pavilion gathered. They were all enraged and wanted to slaughter him. At this moment, Xia Xianyan suddenly shouted, ear-splittingly. She let out a clear, gentle whistle. Giant battleships marched from the dark clouds of the Life Star No. 9 and gathered, like the dark clouds, by Xia Xianyan. She said with a cold face that reflected no other emotion, "Whoever dares to touch him will be my arch-enemy." Bettina and Fu Wei were shocked, and even the warriors of Windstorm didn't have a clue. They all wore a baffled face. Jia Duo woke up as his mind wasn't occupied anymore. He gasped for his breath, shouting, "Kill that brat." Xia Xianyan fixed her cold eyes on Jia Duo, talking slowly, "If you move, I'll kill you." Everybody was startled. "You, why do you need to protect him?" Bettina was shaken, but she seemed to get it. You guys, you've known each other before?" "Yeah, he's a friend from my homeland." Xia Xianyan took a deep breath. Still wearing a cold complexion, she asked quietly, "Shi Yan, what has happened?" The last space node was broken, and Shi Yan knew that his plan was no longer feasible. His eyes recovered their original color as he retrieved the blood sword, sighing. "Jia Duo, you try to sense the changes of the space nodes around this planet." Jia Duo looked icy cold as he released his soul consciousness. Immediately, he felt like he had just fallen into an ice chamber. He couldn't help but shiver. "What's happened?" Bettina was astounded. "All the space nodes around the Life Star No. 9 have been destroyed. We lost the connection to the world outside. I can't take you guys out of here," Jia Duo said with a trembling voice. "Someone wants to eradicate us." After he said that, everybody fell into a terrible crisis. They looked at the sky and felt the invisible pressure, which was approaching like an imposing mountain. "He destroyed the last space channel I built. We can't leave either." Shi Yan shook his head while talking to Xia Xianyan, his face dispirited. Everybody finally understood why Shi Yan had acted crazily. "Open all the defensive barriers. Prepare for a bloody battle." Bettina pondered for a few seconds and then pitched her voice. Suddenly, she had a scepter in her hand, using it to poke the air and release hundreds of dim blue, dark green, and orange-red lightning strikes towards every corner of the star. The dim, gray surface of the planet now had 3 light curtains in dim blue, dark green, and red-orange hues, which looked like 3 different seas. They layered together, beginning to protect the entire planet. Chapter 1028, Renovator. Chapter 1028, Renovator, _ Bettina held the scepter, looking at the sky with a cold and stern face. A cold light sparkled in her face. Potion and Tool Pavilion has had many internal battles. For the throne of Pavilion Master, we used to have some great wars. However, we have never had any exposing elder murder cases, except for the first time. Bettina's face was cold, talking indignantly. "Zulu is mad this time." Jia Duo and Fu Wei paled, clenching their fists. In their rage, they hated that they couldn't jump on Great Elder Zulu to fight him and make him pay a bloody price. The space channel that the Dark Shadow Clan has been combing for several thousand years is about to clear. God Clan will come. Before its great army arrives, They will stir up and put Agate Star area into complete chaos. This is the mission of your great elder in charge. He has to rush anyway. Once he gets the approval of the God Clan, he will have the power that he has never had before. It's normal if he has started to act ruthlessly. Shi Yan frowned. His voice was calm as he slowly exposed the ugly truth. Bettina, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei looked horrified. They looked at Shi Yan, but they didn't say a word. After a while, Bettina shouted, "Are you telling the truth?" Previously, she had a lousy prejudice toward Shi Yan. She didn't believe in what Shi Yan said. She thought that Shi Yan was trying to catch their attention, especially Xia Exanyan's, to earn her favor. However, after this commotion, Bettina had changed. She started to consider what Shi Yan had said. Jia Duo also contemplated. His most significant doubt was that Shi Yan could extract the memory of an ethereal god realm Dark Shadow Clan expert while having only original god realm. He thought that Shi Yan was lying. However, he didn't think so at this moment. Shi Yan came frantically, and his slash had almost destroyed the protection of the lake. He had hurt dozens of guards at original god realm. At the same time, Shi Yan had a strange power that could blur his mind. If Xia Exanyan hadn't stopped Shi Yan, he would have been killed. And he was at third sky of ethereal god realm. No one dared to scorn Shi Yan anymore. At this moment, Bettina, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei thought that Shi Yan's formidable powers were immeasurable. They didn't know his real power's limitation. Although they didn't trust him at first because of his rocketing power, now they had to consider his words. "I don't care if you trust him or not. I absolutely trust him." At this moment, Xia Exanyan naturally stood by Shi Yan. It looked like her trust would never change even if the sun and the moon didn't rise anymore. Her attitude would never change. It was a solid trust that would never be shaken. Initially, I intended to go with him and check the space channel that Dark Shadow Clan has been clearing after I was done with you guys. Then, I would have spread that news all over Agate Star area. Xia Exanyan knitted her brows, but this plan couldn't catch up with the situation. I didn't think that our danger would come that fast. Seems like we'll be surrounded for a while. The danger was coming. She was still calm. She wasn't flustered. Her bearing was elegant and indifferent. Shi Yan's eyes brightened as he inwardly complimented her performance. For 100 years, she had fought alone in Agate Star area. He didn't know how many tricky situations she had experienced to practice and accomplish her now naturally placid bearing. She was much stronger than she used to be. "I'll find the evidence of what you've told us." Bettina took a deep breath. She nodded and then faced the sky. "In the meantime, no one can leave life, star number 9. I've opened all the barriers outside the star. As we can make the defense earlier, we won't have a fatal situation." Fu Wei and Jia Duo were petrified. Xia Exanyan's face was calm and natural as she said, "I wonder if they know that we, the Windstorm War Department, are also here." "Of course they know," sighed Fu Wei, looking at the other woman strangely. "The Great Elder keeps the satellite eye. It's as easy as flipping his hand to get information about the situation here. I think in his plan he has considered some unexpected factors, including you guys." Then did their plan include a first sky of incipient God realm expert in my Windstorm War Department? Xia Exanyan gave a quiet smile. Bettina, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei were filled with joy. "Precursor Feng Yan," called Xia Exanyan. From the battleship above her head descended a little girl around 1 meter tall. She hovered and steadied her body by Xia Exanyan, giving a slight nod. That little girl was small and cute. Although her body looked graceful, she was wearing a shabby gray robe accompanied with a pointy hat like a witch hat in legends. That little girl looked to be in the bright and sweet phase of her youth. However, her eyes looked archaic and deep as if they were old cuts worn out by time. Looking into her eyes, no one could imagine her at such a young age. Quite the contrary, They would think that she was a white-headed senile woman who had already put one foot into her grave. Bettina glanced over her. She was shocked. She cried, "Are you really Feng Yen Mei Mei?" "Bettina, long time no see," the little girl called Feng Yen grinned, talking indifferently. "It has been several thousand years, and we haven't met. You're still stagnant in ethereal god realm. No wonder wise Lu can become great elder of Potion and Tool Pavilion, and you are just the third elder." Bettina looked bitter. "I'm not like Lu. I've mastered forging tools. I've been cultivating strenuously, as told by Potion and Tool Pavilion's guidelines. I'm different from him. Why do you look like this?" Feng Yen frowned, talking indifferently. "When I broke through incipient god realm, I got a problem. I begrudgingly reincarnated to cultivate again. I was lucky that I could figure out my mistakes and make up for it. Eventually, I reached first sky of incipient god realm. It was worth my reincarnation, though. You have used 1,000 years to recover your realm and advance." Bettina was surprised. Fu Wei and Jia Duo admired and respected her efforts. People who cultivated to be a warrior didn't have eternal lives. Many warriors, when breaking through to incipient god realm at peak of ethereal god realm, faced a deadly danger. However, among 100 experts, there were only 2 brave and wise enough to sacrifice their cultivation base and use the soul to reincarnate. This required a great effort and willpower. 1,000 years wasn't a short period to anybody. She had given up everything, scattered her energy, and left only her soul to renovate later. Which characteristics did this task require? However, if she had decided not to renovate her power and retreat when she encountered difficulty, she would have remained as a third sky of ethereal god realm expert, a famous expert. However, she would never have advanced to incipient god realm later. This rule was like steel. However, an expert who decided to reincarnate needed a specific power, or else he wouldn't gather enough memory of the previous life. During several thousand years of rebuilding his power, he would be like a toddler who started to walk. He might encounter more dangers, so that he would eventually completely vanish before he could gather his full memory. From another aspect, reincarnation and renovation of realm required more courage than retreating when facing difficulty. Of course, the advantage was clear. Once he could restore his full memory and power, he could break through to incipient god realm smoothly. Feng Yen belonged to this group of brave experts. She had erased her cultivation base of peak of ethereal god realm and started all over again in this infant body. She had struggled before her memory was fully restored. Eventually, she walked back to the peak and broke the barrier to enter first sky of incipient god realm. Her experience makes people admire and respect her. If they have only one incipient god realm expert and not at second sky of incipient god realm, I think I can counter them. "Feng," Yen said faintly, facing the sky. She looked like a calm well that didn't ripple. "I'm more confident having you here." Bettina didn't conceal her joy. "We know their plan. As long as we arrange properly to resist, we may have a chance to survive this disaster." Bettina's scepter suddenly flew up into the sky, turning into 3 fire columns of dim blue, dark green, and red-orange colors, and moving to 3 imposing mountain ranges of the star. Shortly after, the 3 mountain ranges on the surface of the life star number 9 had their energy surge like a tsunami. The highest mountain of each mountain range exploded, shooting the dim blue, dark green, and red-orange light columns into the sky. They contributed more energy to the 3 light curtains covering the planet. From outer space, people would find life star number 9 be covered in a sea of light with 3 different hues of blue, green, and red-orange. This kind of light protection was immense, bobbing with surging energy. Yen lifted his head to see the 3 seas of energy above his head. which were so transparent that he could still see the dark universe out there. He could even see the shooting stars crossing space. He understood that this light curtain didn't restrain warriors with star power. His soul consciousness could get through the barrier, though. Thinking about Potion and Tool Pavilion's usual deeds, he immediately recognized that it was because he was staying inside the light curtain. It would be much more difficult for people outside to use the soul consciousness to sense the commotion on the planet. It would be very strenuous to break this protective halo. A sound stone emerged from Bettina's palm. It looked like a big emerald. She talked to the stone. Although the sound waves of the sound stones couldn't get through the space out there, it wasn't affected when talking to the warriors in the same Life Star. Shortly after, many battleships based in Life Star Number 9 started their engines. At the same time, thousands of Potion and Tool Pavilion's warriors emerged from the underground, gathering like a rising tide. The enemy is going to invade us. Prepare for a deadly battle. Bettina became sane, seeing the crowd of Potion and Tool Pavilion's guards coming. She lifted her head to look at the horizon and then sat down quietly by the lake. Jia Duo and Fu Wei were astounded for a while. They said nothing, but followed Bettina to sit down. They took out the fragranced pellets to restore their powers. They had to prepare for the coming battle. Xia Xian Yen glanced at the horizon and then at Feng Yan. She said gently, "Precursor Feng Yan, please take care of Windstorm War Department. It originally belonged to you." Feng Yan nodded, talking lovingly. "You must be tired after talking to Potion and Tool Pavilion. Take a good rest then." Xia Xian Yan smiled softly. She winked at Shi Yan and then silently flew towards a lush valley with a lot of blooming flowers outside the lake. Shi Yan rubbed his nose and followed her. Feng Yan slightly frowned, looking at the two disappearing, but she said nothing. Fu Wei closed her eyes to cultivate. Her eyelids twitched as her eyes opened slightly, watching the other two enter the valley with a complicated face. Chapter 1029, Crystal Eater. Chapter 1029, Crystal Eater. Inside the flower-blooming valley, two small streams crossed each other while birds sang. Although this place didn't have a star or a moon, it was illuminated and it felt like spring. You knew there was a 90% chance that it died. Why did you return? Xia Xian Yan and Shi Yan held hands, whispering to each other. Didn't ask for a reason. I don't care about your Windstorm War Department. I asked you to leave with me, and you jumped in directly. Why did you do that? Shi Yan chuckled, his eyes brilliant. The two of them fell in a short silence before bursting out with laughter. They understood each other enough, so they didn't need to express with words. Shi Yan looked at the three-colored energy river above their heads. In a low voice, Shi Yan began to tell her what had happened to him for 100 years since he left Grace Mainland. He told her everything, including his little affair with Feng Rao and the knot he had with Xiao. He didn't want to miss a small detail, his face calm and natural. Xia Xian Yan was smiling. She listened to him attentively without intervening. However, when he told her about his affections with Feng Rao and Xiao, she threw him a charming glare. Afterward, it was her turn to tell him the difficulties she had experienced in the chaotic space basin that year. She had to struggle a lot before she reached Shadow, Ghostly Prison. While she was striving, she got favor from the hegemon of Fighting League. Slowly, she gained her position and became the leader of Windstorm War Department. Her realm had increased. She got her attainment and status. In this flower-filled valley, they seemed to forget the coming disaster. They were holding hands, sitting shoulder by shoulder and whispering to each other like an intimate couple. They felt so peaceful and calm ever since they had arrived at this place. After an unknown time, battleships appeared one by one in the void above their heads. They got up with worries, walking out of the valley. Devil Blood Star. Blood Devil was soaking his naked body in the mysterious blood pond. His vigorous body was as red as burning iron. There was a gleam of death in his eyes as he was studying the truth of Death Power Upanishad. This blood pond was really big. In some other areas, some members of the Yang family with the immortal martial spirit were also soaking in the pond. They were using the pure energy of the pond to clean their bodies and condense immortal demon blood. They looked stern, but they were actually thrilled. Blood Devil suddenly frowned, changing his countenance. He lifted his head to look at the immense void as if he was sensing something. After a while, he left the blood pond and flew away with a grimace. He got into the main palace of Blood Devil Star, summoning Wulan and the other subordinates. They started a secret meeting. A long time afterward, the battleships departed from Devil Blood Star. They quietly headed towards Shadow, Ghostly Prison. Blood Devil left alone to go to Monster Dragon Star. No one knew what he was planning. Dark Shadow Clan. Above Life Star Number 9, which was hidden behind the Energy Sea, hovered battleships of the Ghost Mark Clan and Dark Shadow Clan. Crocker, Hammer, and Du Lin were floating between the battleships. Looking at the light curtain under their feet, they all frowned. "It's the tricolor sea of Potion and Tool Pavilion." Hammer took a deep breath and said, "The tricolor sea is the divine protection weapon of Potion and Tool Pavilion. It uses billions of divine crystals underground as the source of energy. It looks like the three seas are mingling with each other, but in fact, it's created by hundreds of layers of barriers. It's magical indeed. Potion and Tool Pavilion has never sold it." Du Lin sent a wisp of his soul consciousness like a lightning strike. When he touched the light curtain, he felt an explosion in his soul, his body shaking. Hammer snorted, talking coldly. "I heard that the tricolor sea could prevent even incipient God Realm's powers. Although you have extraordinary powers, you've just reached ethereal God Realm. You shouldn't cause pain to yourself." Rubbed his head, Du Lin nodded, his eyes strangely bright. "Yeah, it's powerful. I'm afraid I can't break it myself. Seems like I have to bother you, two precursors." He looked at Cocker and Hammer. Apparently, Cocker and Hammer were at incipient God Realm. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said so. The protection of the tricolor sea is really tough. As Cocker and I are at first sky of incipient God Realm, we can break it if we join hands. However, it would drain our energy massively. Hammer pondered for a while and then said, "Use the attacking formations of the battleships to bombard it. If we use several hundred battleships, shelling it at the same time, I think we can break it after 1 hour max. Then we can get into that star." Hammer looked at Cocker of the Dark Shadow Clan. In Agate Star area, Potion and Tool Pavilion's application of barriers and formation was much more profound than at any other force. The tricolor protection cage they didn't sell was famous in the entire star area. From Zhuil Lu, Hammer knew how powerful the tricolor sea was. He knew if they wanted to break this kind of defensive halo, they had to use a tough method, which was to bombard it continually and violently. They couldn't stop midway, or else the divine crystals underground would supplement more energy to the tricolor sea. It would become formidable once again. Our Dark Shadow Clan has also heard about the tricolor sea's protection ability. Cocker was indifferent. He grinned coldly. This defensive light cage is supported by divine crystals. It's a headache to solve in your Agate Star area, but to us it's nothing. Cocker said arrogantly. Hammer and Du Lin changed their countenances, listening to him. Cocker said nothing more. He called his troopers, his eyes icy cold. A dark shadow warrior riding a butterfly war chariot hurried to approach him. He asked respectfully, "What do you need, sir?" "Release the Crystal Eater," hissed Cocker. The Dark Shadow warrior nodded. He left to the battleships of the Dark Shadow Clan to spread the order. Shortly after, they saw many balls fly out from the battleships of the Dark Shadow clan. Those balls were blue-brown, which made them look like stones. However, they had many black spikes rolling towards the tricolor sea, covering Life Star number 9. The hedgehog balls scattered when they fell on the surface of the energy sea. They changed quickly. The balls cracked, releasing the beasts which looked like rats. Those beasts had mouths full of sharp teeth. Their bead-like eyes glistened as they were gnawing the light curtain. Hammer and Duelin gawked. The tricolor sea set up by Potion and Tool Pavilion suddenly shrank as the alien crystal eaters were chewing it. The beasts swallowed the glowing energy lines. Their small eyes sparkled happily. They had eaten until their tummies were bloated. They looked so satisfied. As long as the restriction or barrier uses energy from divine crystals, the crystal eaters can swallow them all. This is our unique strength. The defensive halo of Potion and Tool Pavilion on your agate star area can't stand those crystal eaters, said Cocker arrogantly. Hammer and Duelin quietly watched the tricolor sea disappear little by little. Their faces became odd as they were both excited and fearful. At this moment, they had finally realized how intimidating the Dark Shadow clan was. Being the dominant force that didn't belong to any mundane forces, Potion and Tool Pavilion had to use so much manpower and effort to create the tricolor sea. However, it was simply destroyed by a horde of alien beasts. The two of them felt frightened. They glanced at Cocker as they thought that this mysterious force of shadow, ghostly prison wasn't ordinary at all. Standing by the crystal-clear lake, they could see its bottom. Bettina was full of confidence as she said that the tricolor sea of the Potion and Tool Pavilion wasn't something the enemy could solve easily. However, shortly after, she was shaken as she looked at the sky, her face pale. Feng Yen, Jia Duo, Fu Wei, Xia Xanyan, Shi Yan, and many warriors of Potion and Tool Pavilion looked at the sky. Then they all made their ugliest grimaces. How can it be? Jia Duo screamed. They dissolved the tricolor sea. Gosh, does Zwilu know how to solve it? Impossible. The tricolor sea isn't something Zwilu can solve easily. It's not what Zwilu can do. Bettina had a trickle of blood on the corner of her mouth. I've never seen this kind of strange beast before. This isn't a kind from Agate Star area. At least, I have never seen it in my whole life. Dark Shadow Clan, Xia Xanyan said with a cold face. It's the Dark Shadow Clan's trick. I heard my hegemon said that they could break all kinds of formations and barriers that use divine crystals as the source of energy. In Shadow Ghostly Prison, Dark Shadow Clan has used the same trick to eradicate many forces. Listening to her, Bettina, Jia Duo, and Fu Wei felt chills sent down their spines. They knitted their brows tightly. It's not a trick of Dark Shadow Clan. While people were panicking, Shi Yan sighed and said, it's the trick of the God Clan. Those alien beasts are called Crystal Eaters. The God Clan breeds them. The Dark Shadow Clan got those beasts from the God Clan. I told you that Dark Shadow Clan is the watchdog of the God Clan. Now you can confirm that. People were shocked. They looked at him in fright. I got the information from that ethereal god, Realm Dark Shadow Man. I know the secret of those crystal eaters. This kind of beast is originated in a mysterious area of this universe. The God Clan had captured them. They brought the beasts to God Star area and bestowed them to the vassal clans. The Dark Shadow Clan was one of the vassal clans of God Clan. Lifting his head to watch the alien beasts chew off the energy barrier, Shi Yan felt helpless, and he didn't have a solution. We shouldn't depend on the defensive halo above our heads. Prepare to engage in a deadly battle. That light curtain can endure for a long time. Is there any way to kill the Crystal Eaters? Asked Feng Yan all of a sudden. You have to get out there. The Crystal Eaters can swallow the energy generated from divine crystals, but they can't resist energy from warriors. Sure, Yin shook his head. But I think the warriors of the Dark Shadow clan and the Ghostmark clan out there won't give us a chance to do that. If you get out alone, you will bear the bombarding from thousands of warriors. Perhaps they have incipient God realm experts. You can't stand it. People became so stern. Their confidence was smashed since the Crystal Eaters had appeared. They couldn't gather their courage once again. Get underground. Bettina watched the sky. She pondered for a while and then ordered with pain. Get down. Get underground. Now. While she was talking, the lake nearby cracked, revealing a bottomless cave. Battleships of Potion and Tool Pavilion hovering in the sky lined up, entering the cave one by one. The guards of Potion and Tool Pavilion all grimaced as they knew that it was the last defense of Potion and Tool Pavilion when they had to get underground. You're tuning in to the Thunderspear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.